Steps back in the end zone. Touchdown, Alabama. Jahmyr Gibbs, what a play.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
They're going to throw across the middle. It's a dart. Ibuka dives for the end zone. Touchdown pass number 5 for Stroud.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Rides the play action, has plenty of time to crank it up and go downfield and into the end zone for a touchdown to the freshman Dane Key. Will Levis, how about that?
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
And when he leans into that fastball, it is a legit fastball. He can spin it. Play action here. Steps up in the pocket, looking downfield. Now he'll take off and run. The whole left side of the field, wide open for Richardson. Touchdown!
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
On second down, McKee to throw. Sideline, got his man, Michael Wilson.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go. It's a very crowded studio today with a lot of new faces and one older. Well, not older, but the fact that Fate Flinch is back in studio, Baylor volleyball player with us as well. We'll introduce everybody here momentarily, but to my left, Paul Catalina, to my right, Craig Smoak. I'm back today, David Smoak. This is 365 Sports. And a lot to get to, and I want to eventually get to a lot of the reaction to Jerome Tang and his discussion with the crowd, or his, I guess, speech to the Kansas State crowd after shocking. No, I don't know if that's the case because they're ranked high, but beating Kansas last night at Bramwich. We'll get to that and more. Baylor has now won 3 straight in the conference. Iowa State with a great win against Texas. But right now, the start of the day, the story today is something that just popped about an hour ago. Brian Estridge, who's the voice of TCU, has Frogs Today, a show similar to what we do, and they put this up just recently. TCU has hired Kendall Briles as their new offensive coordinator. Now, the balloon was floated up in the air. Obviously, there was blowback. There has been blowback. How many times Art's been tried to hire somewhere, and then they let it go out, and then he's gone, right? Kendall Briles, who's been at Florida State, Florida Atlantic. He's been at, obviously, Arkansas
and Houston.
And now Kendall Briles will be, appears to be the offensive coordinator for Sonny Dykes in Fort Worth with TCU.
Yeah, it's a done deal, and there is. I mean, I get that if you're upset about what happened here 6 years ago in the Briles collapse and everything that happened in the controversy, but it has been 6 years. Kendall Briles has been hired by 4 other places other than TCU. You have 2 other coaches on the staff who were here at that time, one of whom is the strength coach, and if you haven't realized how much time they spend with this strength coach, take the offensive coordinator and multiply it by 2 or 3. And that, so, you know, I'm not trying to point fingers at anybody. We really don't know the details of what every person's involvement and everything was, but everybody but Art Briles has had other jobs and multiple other jobs since then. And so I think there needs to be a time where, you know, we just have to deal with it and move on. And TCU fans can be mad all they want, and they'll pretend to be mad. But if the offense is in the top 25 nationally and TCU is still putting up massive points like they did a year ago, and Chandler Morris and the quarterbacks play well and they recruit well, then they will forget about it and put it into another part of their mind.
Yeah, I mean, I said yesterday, you know, at this point he's been at like 4 other places. I mean, what's stopping TCU from hiring him? Didn't stop anybody else from doing it. It was okay at Arkansas. It was okay at FSU. It was okay at FAU. I mean, it's been okay a lot of different places all over the country. They had no issue with it. They had no issue with him. They had no issue with Randy Clements. TCU hasn't had any issue with Kendall, no issue with Kaz Kazadi, no issue with Carlton Buckles. Texas has hired guys off that old staff, even if they were GA types like a Casey Horney. Almost like 100 schools at this point have probably had some dalliance, you know, with a member of that staff, either – you know, the main part of it or the extended staff at this point. Shoot, when Baylor was getting torn apart, there was no lack of schools that were trying to come up, like it was chum in the water to go grab and grab that style and run with it. Texas hired freaking Sterling Gilbert. They were so desperate to try and get a little piece of that Art Briles tree, but not actually have it be Art Briles after that became toxic. Y'all remember that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Whatever happened to Sterling Gilbert?
The president flew to Tulsa.
Yeah.
The president of the university flew to Tulsa.
Sterling Gilbert.
On
and
a Friday afternoon.
Everybody at the time, and no disrespect to the guy, but it's like at the time he was nobody. The only reason he was anybody was because he was a guy that was from the Art Briles tree. There was no, like, he had been at Arkansas and did that. No, he was just a guy. He was a guy who happened to be coached by that system and had coached in that system. And I guess there was a thought that he was going to be the next big thing out of that system. And everybody else was too toxic, so they were like, let's get what piece we can off of it. But now that toxicity has basically died down. And I predicted this a few years ago that, you know, initially there's going to be the big push to get everybody fired and burn it all down. And then when all the dust settled and everything calmed down, eventually it would turn right back around and the focus would be back on Baylor like it had never left. And I've already seen one TCU guy who's a reporter. He's got, you know, good following, who's already, you know, defending it and saying, well, what about Baylor? And what about, you know, like, using that card? And I get it. Like, that's not really one that they have a great defense against. But to me, it just shows you that no matter how scandalous something is, and by no means am I saying that anybody's like some little innocent party, nor am I saying that Kendall Briles is like guilty and needs to go to jail for anything, because again, he's been hired multiple times. There's been nothing in court outside of a lawyer's statement, which you can take at face value, and a lot of people chose to because they wanted it to be true, versus whether they weighed if it was just a lawyer trying to be, you know, as scandalous as possible in his wording. But yeah, I mean, it just tells me that as much as we, you know, parade around the greatness and glory of sports and all these different things, at the end of the day, it's all about winning at all costs, basically. And not saying that's necessarily the move that TCU's making, but they're certainly sending a message that, you know, all that stuff that they, as a fan base or as an institution, were complaining about a few years ago, all that's okay now. I mean, not in terms of what happened at Baylor, but in terms of the people involved. There's not many people that were more directly involved than Kaz Kazadi and Kendall Briles. Like, you can't get much higher up the tree than that. So it is very interesting all these years removed to see that an institution that was so gung-ho on, you know, the outrage is now basically compiling members of that very same staff they were outraged about. And I understand it's a different location, it's a different time of year, and that's not a knock against Kaz Kazadi or Kendall Briles. It's just hilarious to me in some ways, in a weird way. it's funny that here we are, fast forward, and the old Baylor staff is basically accumulating on the TCU side of the fence. It's wild, but it's also not surprising because that's college sports.
There's a statue, Amon Carter Stadium, of former TCU football coach Gary Patterson, who hated Art Briles, hated Baylor, and they weren't close. He used to tell me a couple of different times that he and Art were friends. No, they weren't. He hated Art Briles, and they had some passionate, incredible games. There was bitterness because they were both basically recruiting the same type players, and still are. But Gary Patterson's gone. I actually saw somebody respond when Brian Estridge and Frogs Today reported this, 3 or 4 days ago. Well, why don't you go ahead and just take down the statue of Gary Patterson, as if Gary Patterson still runs that campus, and you wonder if he's been blowing up any phones or whatever. There is some hypocrisy here. There's no question about it. Kendall Briles, good. Go do whatever you can do. He had never did anything negative to me. Some of the guys on staff basically just shunned us after all hell broke loose, after Briles was fired. Most of them then reached back out, at least to all of us or some of us as well. And I'm damn sure, I'll say this right now, I'm not anywhere to the point where I can sit there and ever say somebody doesn't deserve a second chance. I've needed chances. Maybe you've needed chances. Now, different reasons behind it, and everyone can kind of categorize whatever those chances are. But in this particular case, he's going to be at TCU. TCU did not buckle. Everybody else normally does. Florida State didn't have to deal with it. Arkansas didn't have to deal with it. FAU didn't have to deal with it. And neither did Houston have to deal with it.
You know what? There are two distinct differences, and they're not going to make the TCU fans who are mad about this look good. And look, TCU, as Sonny Dykes and Jeremiah Donati and the ones who made the decision, look, they know this is not Kendall's second chance. He's already been given that. That already happened. The FAU did that years ago. They don't have to give him a second chance. He's earned his way past all that coaching and nothing happening at the other places, right? But the thing that TCU is mad about, it's because they just came off the best season that you could possibly imagine for TCU, right? Other than winning that last game, but they had a season beyond their wildest dreams in the first year of Sonny Dykes. So they now have put themselves in this position where they think they could either do better than Kendall Briles, which maybe they could. I mean, obviously, they lost because they lost a guy who is more highly regarded in the current moment than Kendall Briles is in Garrett Riley, but also that they are the second chance. And this is not the university saying this. These are the angry fans. You're not his second chance. He's already passed through 4 other doors. You know, if it was airport security, he'd already be on the damn plane. All right? So you don't have to worry about that. Like, they've already done that. And you can feel bad about a guy's past or mad about it. But the bottom line is, if it was Jeff Lebby and you didn't take the time to read that he was Art Briles' son-in-law a year ago because his name is Lebby, it was Kaz Kazadi. His last name's not Briles. It's Carlton Buckles. His name's not Briles. It's because his name is Kendall Briles, and it was the Hatfields and McCoys between Gary Patterson and the Briles family for all those years, and you are bringing it up now. And you're not bringing it up, for the most part, because you feel any kind of way about what happened to the poor people that were assaulted here. You're not saying that. No. You're saying that because you're trying to make yourself feel better about whatever it is and you don't know.
Who did Auburn? And again, there's different levels of what you get yourself involved with that are bad, and some are worse and some are awful. Who did Auburn just hire as a head football coach?
Hugh Freeze.
Who did
their offensive coordinator
as their offensive coordinator?
Bobby Petrino. And look, Hugh Freeze's offensive coordinator is Philip Montgomery, who was here during all that time too. So
left right before all hell broke loose. And again, so that's it. We're going to have Steven Johnson from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram at about 4:20. I read a column he wrote a day or two ago about this, and his whole point was, is it worth it? Is it worth it for the blowback? It will go away just like it does everybody else. But he wrote that saying, is this even the best person for the job, much less is it worth it to bring him into TCU with all the good feelings that they've had the last 6 or 8 months?
Yeah, I mean, y'all can react a certain way to it, but that's just where I am. Like, I'm not even worried about, like, the whole, what happened and all that. I understand there's a backstory to it, but, like, we've already gone over this all. We've done it 5 different schools now. Like, you're not unique, like Paul's saying, TCU. Like, you're not the second chance. You're not the one. He's been around. He's been coaching at various spots all over the country since all of this occurred. So, like, that's – I already made my bones about like all of that years ago. I mean, at this point, and moved on, in the way that you can move on from that while still, remembering the lessons learned. But yeah, I mean, I think from the TCU standpoint, it's just funny to see. I've seen a few comments now of like, well, Sonny's earned our trust. Let's roll with Sonny. It's like, he's been there 1 year. Would he have earned your trust if he had gone 7-6? Maybe a little bit, but not the way he earned your trust by just winning. So again, circling back to what I just said a few minutes ago, it's not a surprise in college athletics that we're here where Kendall Briles is now coaching at TCU all these years removed from, just the hatred that boiled between those two schools in the heat of the hottest of moments, scandal-wise in the public eye. And, now he's coaching there, and Kaz has been coaching there, and, other Carlton Buckles is coaching there, and it's just – never would have predicted that, and yet probably should have, because that's college sports for you. I mean, it really is. I mean, you got to really screw up badly to not get any type of a second chance. And it just so happens that that's what happened with one party involved who shares the last name of TCU's new offensive coordinator. But, yeah, don't give me I trust Sonny. No, you trust him because he wins. That's why you trust him. And the moment that he stops winning games, that trust will start to falter. And you know what? I would bank on that because that, too, is college sports.
Yeah, and I can tell you that based on, the only thing we know, that everything else you would hear about any of this is hearsay. So if you said this guy was super involved or this guy was super involved, more than likely it's hearsay. That doesn't mean some of it is not true, but there's no evidence to support 100% that it would happen or not. Here's what we know Kendall Briles did. The rules he broke at Baylor. He had a recruiting violation because he talked to a kid outside the dead period at a track meet.
Yep.
And he was caught doing that because other coaches were there to do the same thing. So I'm not, morally equivocating that away, but that's what he got in trouble for. The only thing I will tell you what he did do at Baylor that we do know is that from the TCU game on, after the Wall Street Journal article, Kendall Briles kind of led the charge of shutting it down, like as far as the offensive coaching staff and the way that went for the rest of the year. But, that was a weird situation for that group of guys. So
the chat room has a little bit of both. Some of you are saying, "Why? My goodness, the guys paid it not is so much time," and some aren't happy with it. I saw the tweet that was put up by Frogs today on the breaking news, and then a couple of down is, "Hey, don't judge too harshly. The Toads just aren't ready to have the world stop laughing at them. How's all the Briles bashing taste now?" And then someone said, "We still hate him." And that was one of the responses as well.
Yeah, I mean, not all TCU fans are happy with it. I've clearly seen some that don't like the move. And I think the big question that I've seen asked that I feel is the right question to ask, and I'd be asking it myself, is just why? Like, I mean, why ruin what has been goodwill by, bringing in that name and knowing how people react to that name and the history there with that particular school. But like I just said, like, what are we talking about here? The moment his offense starts scoring 50, no one will care. The moment TCU's back in, first place or winning games, no one will care. And that's the real deal. Like, I'm sorry to cut through what could be like probably another hour of conversation, but that's legit. That is what will happen. It won't matter what at all we're talking about right now if Kendall Briles just helps them win games to any fan out there. And look, I'm sure there's probably like Sally in Louisville's like, nuh-uh, no matter what, I'm not going to root. Okay, kudos to you. And to whoever joins you in that, if you want to make that stand, that's fine. But, I mean, he's been around for a few years now. And like I said yesterday, what's preventing TCU really from making the move, given that he's been around, he's been coaching at various places, and Arkansas is trying to keep him. Certain Arkansas fans don't want to lose him. Some are, tired of the flip-flopping as far as will he, won't he. But outside of that, I don't think they want to lose that exciting offense. And KJ Jefferson's final year, they were building up to that. And so now there's some people bummed about that. And, I just think it's, like I said, part of sports and especially college sports is, the fact that you're going to get some crossover, and this was probably inevitable. I mean, we've already seen Jeff Lebby back in the league a year ago, and look, man, if there's nothing preventing them from being it, I'm not going to be the one to, put my foot down and demand they not coach. I don't have that type of power, and I don't have that type of knowledge to even be able to make a move like that. I can read the same summaries and stuff that other people have based entire opinions on, but to me, that's a lawsuit verbiage, and to me, that's very interpretable, some of those things, and some have taken it and run it to the extreme. A comment about white girls, and some have taken it and been like, that's just a comment talking to a recruit, and it was nothing more than that. Some have blown it up to be the biggest thing of all time, and a sign of him being
it's evidence that he was involved.
Yeah, a sign of him being like basically human trafficking. You know what I mean? Like they've taken it such to an extreme. So it's a polarizing name. It's a polarizing spot because of the history there. But it's ultimately college athletics, and as long as he wins games, then we'll hear a lot less of this, with each win that stacks up.
I try to also, and this is my final take on it. We'll have Steven Johnson at 420. You know what? I can only go by what I know about how someone may have treated me or how I had interactions with others. Nobody on that staff, up until, again, about the time when Art Briles and all that went down, a lot of coaches went south. They went quiet. They didn't want to talk. I didn't blame them. They're pissed at the time. That's fine. But eventually some of them came around. I remember one time Chris Acuff contacted me, among others contacted me, because they were mad at the time. And the other thing is this. UT hired Casey Horney right off the top, like immediately. Casey Horney's a great dude. He's a part of the UT football system, but that was okay then, along with others. We are so, not only is it hypocritical, we are also so damn, we just lie to each other about, like, oh my God, look at him, and yet you yourself have to look in the mirror on whatever you might be doing in your life.
No, we don't just lie to each other. We lie to ourselves.
Okay, there you go.
Like, I mean,
other college football stories.
Some people, I'm not going to say that broadly. I don't agree with that. I don't think we all lie to ourselves or lie to each other. I think there's certain moments that people pick and choose, and this is one of them. But yeah, I don't think that just gives a free pass to everybody. Like, we all screw up, so let's all just keep screwing up. I don't agree with that. But as far as Kendall Briles specifically goes, I mean, like I said yesterday, good hire for TCU. You want to talk from a strictly football perspective, it's a good hire. I don't think it's the offense that, scares everybody to death the way that it did at one point in time, because now it's commonplace. It's commonplace, the spot that he just left, the league he just left at this point, when just a few years ago they were talking about it like it was some sort of witchcraft and not real football. And now everybody's trying to get a piece of it. So again, that too is college sports for you, and college football in particular. And that's why he's a coveted guy for Sonny Dykes to replace Garrett Riley with. And, that'll be a good fit for them. He knows Texas. He'll be able to recruit well and all those things. I know that's not the concern that anybody has, but, people can voice their concerns. But, ultimately TCU will just say, well, we vetted, and nobody knows what that really means, quite frankly. Well, we vetted and we feel good about it, and they'll, go through with the rest of the process and let people argue about it. But he's going to be on that TCU sideline. So that's what we do know. And it is bizarre. Like I said, that's really my main takeaway. Is I am not surprised in any way, shape, or form that there's been this, not reunion, but that he's made his way back to the Big 12. I'm not surprised that it's at TCU, quite frankly, because it wouldn't have surprised me any school outside of Baylor, really, because that just won't ever be possible. But, yeah, it's definitely something that makes the league storylines next year a little bit more interesting.
No question. And so a couple of other stories in college football. Walker Howard is leaving LSU. We knew that. He's going to Ole Miss. Another story, Cam Rising. Remember, he went out in the Rose Bowl. Today, there was a quote from Coach Whittington, asked if he could detail his Whittingham could detail the injury. Can't detail due to HIPAA rules. It's a leg injury. Well, he turns around and mentioned it's a leg injury, needing extensive rehab. He will not participate in the spring, but we expect him to be ready for the season opener, which for them would be sometime in September.
That's good news on Cam Rising. Look, I think that at this point, for him personally, he probably needs less time in the spring in that system than anybody else would. So this would allow Utah's other quarterbacks to get more reps and be ready, because again, if he's coming off of injury, you're going to really want him to be more prepared than otherwise, or feel comfortable. So hopefully this works out for everybody and all around, and hopefully for football fans, we get to see as much of Cam Rising as possible, because to me, he's one of the most fun, tough guy quarterbacks to watch in college football right now.
Now,
Well, he's playing in Waco in week 2. So, I mean, that's kind of notable that he's going to be at McLean Stadium the second week of the season with Utah, ready to go against Baylor. So we will see him up close and personal. So that is notable on where he is injury-wise. And as far as Walker Howard, I mean, that's kind of a big deal that he committed to Ole Miss, guys. I mean, that was one of the final quarterback, big-name portal guys, and TCU was linked to him. There were others as well, but there were some thoughts that that's where he could end up. Not sure what Kendall Briles' plan is. Now we got to start saying that and getting used to that. Not sure what his plan is at quarterback, but that was a potential target for them and for others. So that was one of the last, at least it seems right now, one of the last notable names left. And so, Ole Miss hasn't exactly been like, ironclad at quarterback. The last year, so really dating back to the Sugar Bowl, I guess, when Luke Altmaier had to come in, and ever since then they haven't been just rock solid necessarily. They're Jackson Dart, good player, but they could definitely use another body. So Walker Howard, it's interesting. He's going to stick around in the SEC and see his old team, and we'll see what Kiffin does with him.
I do think that Lane Kiffin wanted to push Jackson Dart a little bit because they ran the ball really, really well last year.
Judkins was awesome.
As far as throwing the ball, they were okay. I mean, like that, you wouldn't put them in the category of like, dear God, why can't they throw the ball? But they need to get better doing that. And so I think that's one of the reasons Walker Howard is there, because he wants to push Jackson Dart, and he will. He will.
They'll push each other. Mm-hmm. All right. One note of this: did you see that, Garrett? I sent you an email with Craig's tweet. Just a simple tweet yesterday after or during the Mack Rhodes interview, which Craig and Paul were a part of yesterday. Watch and look at the numbers. Garrett, do we have it? Okay, we're going to take a break. We'll do this first. Take a break. We'll come back with it, and then we'll also get into Kansas State, Kansas, into Baylor and Texas Tech, into Iowa State, Texas, also tonight in the Big 12, and more. And this is 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, they are the people that you can count on for great service, great prices, and great deals. I guess the prices and deals go hand in hand, but with Richard Carr, there's great selection as well. And for the first time in a couple of years, they got the best selection that they've had. With supply chain issues and all that was going on with that over the last couple of cycles, there's been shortages with microchips and getting cars on the lot, getting new vehicles on the lot. Now, fast forward a couple years later, they got the biggest selection of vehicles on the lot that they've had in 2 years. A Texas-size selection. Dozens of Sierra trucks on the lot. Qualified buyers can get 2.9% financing on 2023 GMC Sierra trucks. Qualified buyers can get 3.9% financing on GMC Terrain SUVs or the entire lineup of Buick SUVs in stock. And right now, there's not a better truck on the road than the GMC Sierra, offering best-in-class towing, unsurpassed strength, and premium comfort. For a limited time, get 2.9% financing and no payments for 90 days. In addition to the biggest selection they've had on the lot in a couple of years, well, they also have 80 quality pre-owned cars and trucks in stock included with that, many of them under $20,000, affordable, thoroughly inspected, ready to finance. For almost any credit rating, Richard Carr has quality vehicles ready to drive today. So for 23 years in Central Texas, check out the people who have built a reputation as the dealership that you can count on for your automotive needs. Richard Carr is run by proud Central Texans. Log on to richardcarr.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and two-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
When we moved to Texas, we were like fish out of water. We didn't know anyone in our neighborhood until our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent came to the house. She was so helpful and reassuring, a friendly face with that Texan hospitality I'd heard about. When we purchased a Texas Farm Bureau insurance policy, we knew we were making the right choice. We knew our family would be protected.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon-wrapped fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes. Cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links. Fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Tim Fitzgerald covers Kansas State. He'll join us in about 15 minutes. Randy Peterson covers Iowa State in about an hour and 15 minutes. John Machota at 5:30 on the Cowboys and 49ers in the NFL playoffs. Paul's top 5. Yesterday during the Mac Rhodes segment, he, again, was asked by both of you, I listened to it, about the schedule, the Big 12 schedule. Craig put this out on his Twitter page. End of January, that is the timeline. Okay, it's rather benign, right? Mm-hmm. Do you see how many views that got?
Yeah, 156,000.
That's good, I guess. I don't like the views button. I really don't.
I know you don't. You, if anyone, don't like it.
I think it's already changed how people use Twitter. Like, they're so focused on the views button now, like how many that number says. And I've never done the social media thing for all of that. I get that's what the point of it is. But, yeah, I mean, that's cool, but that's not something I was really hoping you were highlighting here.
What did you want me to highlight?
The basis of the tweet. Discussion of the tweet.
It is. I mean, it's just a never-ending, maybe down the road, kick the can down the road. The UCF
Terry Mahajer,
Terry Mahajer is how you asked that question. It was it just only fueled it. Pac-12 came out with their schedule today. Big 12 has a TV deal. Pac-12 has a schedule. And now we'll probably see that flip.
The difference is that the Pac-12 knows when their teams are leaving. They're like, they know that, so they can go ahead and do it. That's the biggest thing. They know, so they can go ahead and make the schedule. And I'm sure a lot through tears about like the last times they're going to get to go to LA for anything. But at least the airports everywhere else will be easier, you hope. But their schedule's out, so
SEC's dropped.
Yeah, SEC's dropped. Of course, again, the SEC knows, like, they know what their teams are going to be this year and what they assume is next year. I also think and Smokey, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Craig, I would think the SEC as opposed to the Big 12, and this is just, history making me think this, that the SEC has the contingency plan for everything. Like they might even have one for like, what if we get Texas and not Oklahoma for a year? Like, here's that one. Like, you know, they would probably thought it all out and like, what's your schedule if Texas and Oklahoma can play, but only in Japan? Here you go. We've done that one as well. We've got a guy in a room who's thought that out.
But
like
I can understand the delays, and I know why people want to know the schedule. Some of you want to book some road trips if it's in Provo or if it's in Orlando or if it's in Cincinnati or wherever. I get that. I
think the View shows that the people are interested and they want to see the schedule, and they want to see it now because it's been talked about being released in December, and it was talked about being released at the end of the season. It was talked about being released in January, and then it was coming soon, and it's still coming soon. Well, I mean, now we're in mid-January, and yeah, at some point, people do want to know where they can expect to be playing next year. You know, I'm sure coaches would love to know, kind of like just in their minds, what the roller coaster is going to be, you know, looking like heading into next year. But yeah, I mean, fans want to start making predictions. They want to know what the toughest stretch is. They want to know what home games and what road games, and you know, get into all that. I mean, that's as big a part of the offseason discussion as anything is the schedule itself, and so that's what we're all waiting on. And as I said in an article, we'll pour through it and go through all of it whenever that day comes. But it does sound like the reason I even wrote something about it was because he did reiterate that end of January. And so if we get it before then surprise, and none of us will complain that we got it early. But at the worst, you would think, okay, they've got less than 2 weeks to drop that thing, because that would be the end of January here in, 13 days. That's when sometime between now and then we should see a Big 12 schedule. And if it doesn't come out, then I will start really maybe getting like there's people who are like freaking out about the schedule. Like, I mean, like, and maybe it's just the way they're tweeting. I think
more of the incoming fans. I know others are, but I think a lot of the incoming
people
fans
are kind of
excited.
Like, there's like some reactions that it's like cool down a little bit. It's just a schedule drop. It's not like life or death here. But I mean, again, I understand the anticipation level, and especially if you're one of those new schools, like, do we play, Texas or Oklahoma? And there's a lot of people that want to know that on both sides of it. But yeah, it should come out in the next 2 weeks. That's the main message that I got, despite all of the other times that your Marcus said what he said, or Terry Mohajir said what he said, or whoever else has said something about the schedule. Based on what Mac told us, end of January. So today's the 18th. We've got it. Is there a 31st in January?
Yes.
Okay. So between now and the 31st, and that's when it should drop. And if it doesn't, like I said, then I will join those who have been outspoken about where is this thing, because that will make you wonder, like, truly, we get that there's logistics, but what is taking so long at this point?
Well, to me, the story is this. It's not that to me, the story is that they can't release it because they're still waiting the last little pieces of Texas and Oklahoma leaving after this coming season.
Which is even more reason why people want to know, because that would then inform all of us of what's happening with Texas and Oklahoma. Like, there's layers to it. It's like, yeah, you want to know when you're playing at Stillwater, but yeah, you want to know, like, who are they playing on their way out, if in fact this is the way out. And the way it's set up will probably indicate, you would think in some ways, maybe if that is in fact their last ride. But I mean, that's going to have to become public sooner rather than later, because if it is, well, it's 8 months away, and that's going to be the last ride, and we're not going to go through that, and then all of a sudden at the end of it go, oh yeah, by the way, that was the end. No, there's going to be some build-up and some lot of discussion about that. So that's also, I think, where people are coming from.
Justin said, I think the new fans just want the schedules released as the airlines are about to release their fall flight schedule.
Yeah. Want to book trips, yep.
All right.
I have one quick suggestion for the Big 12. So you ever go on Netflix because you've got a show that you like, and they do it's supposed to come out on Thursday, and it's like Wednesday night, and you go on Netflix and like, oh, Stranger Things comes out at 8 p.m. tonight. That's good. That's what the Big 12 should do. They should Stranger Things this.
I think that based on I was just thinking this last night, but I would have had like a legendary name from every program, do a little video on it at this point. I mean, you could really do some cool things with the schools involved. But at this point, there is such an anticipation level that you see the NFL has a full-blown schedule show. The Big 12 doesn't have a network nor a need for a network and doesn't need to have a full-blown presentation, but I think they could gussy up the announcements a little bit to bring in more social media eyes, or at least create some more excitement. And your Mark is a showman, so at this point you got people's attention. So when it's ready to go, then make it a big deal and make it a fun thing. And like the NFL, they've made everything a big deal. Maybe make the schedule release an even bigger deal than it's been in years past.
That's what we think we'll get from him, or at least that's what we've been told. And in some ways we've seen that. Now, last night in college basketball, and we're about to hear from Tim Fitzgerald, who was at the Kansas State game against KU. Jerome Tang, former Baylor longtime assistant coach, and K-State beat KU. It was a phenomenal game. K-State started well, had a nice lead, and you could see it just start to, like, they were bleeding to death. But they stayed on, and they have back and forth the last 5 minutes. Now, Garrett, here is Jerome Tang following the game. All right, there were actually people who took offense to that. He actually was trying to stop the crowd in the pregame and even the postgame from saying, well, this, when they were putting up FKU chant. And what he was trying to do, and he mentioned this during the week, was trying to get the fan base to focus on themselves rather than whoever they're playing. We understand it's a huge rivalry, 38-6 KU against Kansas State in the last 20 years or so. And so there's Tim Fitzgerald. We'll join him. We'll have him join us in just a moment. Paul, Catalina, you've known Jerome Tang. You texted me last night saying you were thrilled for Jerome Tang and Kansas State in the win. And I was thrilled for them. I don't care who it had been against. I was happy for him against Baylor just because that's a huge win. It was emotional. I was there. But I'm thrilled for Jerome Tang and K-State.
I was not as happy for him as I could have been last night, but that had nothing to do with me. And that's where I'm going to leave that. But I do think it's all like that was look, and that's a Scott Drew. I've seen him many times grab the mic. Like he's done it for me when I've done the PA there. He's come by and he grabs the mic and says something real quick. Thank you, Baylor fans, or all that after a big win. And that's a huge win in year one for Kansas State at home to get that over Kansas in overtime. And it was absolutely knockdown, drag out. An alley-oop won the game, and put Kansas up against it right there at the end. But he is about, look, that is not, Jerome Tang does not want you yelling F anybody. He doesn't want you to say that. That's not, he wants the fans, the personality of the fans to match the personality of the team and the personality of the coaching staff. He would never do that to anyone. It's not his style. He would never, ever say that. And he said it in the press conference earlier in the week that they have let Kansas occupy too much real estate in their heads, and he would like it to be about Kansas State and what they accomplished as opposed to the fact of who they just accomplished it against. It's going to be a huge rivalry. It always is, but he also didn't want to go down that road of this is what that's about. It's about what you're doing at Kansas State. And man, like I have not seen a coach more quickly embrace or be embraced by a fan base and kind of flip the thing on its ear. I can't think of ever, but he's had a lot of experience dealing with all kind of different things here. So it's not surprising that it was him. I'm just amazed at his ability to do it.
Yeah, I mean, being 16-2 and beating Kansas will do that for you. Yeah. I mean, that definitely helps you along the way. But, I mean, that clip that we just saw was basically him in real time changing culture. I mean, that's what that was. He was changing the culture right in front of our very eyes. And now, yes, they will chant differently after that big win, and I think that was a good move on his part, and a great angle to take. And obviously a lot of excitement out there. That was a huge win. That goes without saying, but very cool to see that. Very cool to see Tang thriving. The new MCU phase coming out is Tang the Conqueror is what came to mind. I don't know if that's been adopted yet, but you heard it here first. But that's basically what it feels like. Is he's out there just conquering obstacle after obstacle in the Big 12. And it's awesome to see, and couldn't happen to a better guy. And I'm saying that based off the limited, knowledge I have of him compared to y'all two. But, I mean, it's clear as day if you're around him, you listen to him, you've seen him coach. There's not many built like that, and he's the perfect fit right now for Kansas State and just the college basketball world.
Great win for K-State. Obviously, there's last night, Iowa State. We'll hear from Randy Peterson in an hour with a grinded-out win against UT. Game was tight. Then Iowa State just started to separate near the end. Texas with their second conference loss. And then Baylor goes to Lubbock. They've won like 4 of the last 5 times in Lubbock. and win 81-74. Texas Tech right now 0-6. Baylor, remember, was 0-3. They're 3-3. They still have a road game coming up this weekend against Oklahoma. And then Monday, they host Kansas in Big Monday at the Farrell Center on Monday of next week. So that's going on. Tonight, TCU at West Virginia, Oklahoma, and Oklahoma State. When we come back, Tim Fitzgerald on Jerome Tang, on Kansas State, and on last night's atmosphere. This is 365 Sports. Kick off the 2023 with a bang at the new sales event. Something new sales event going on at Allen Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Right now, 2.9% financing for 72 months on 2022 Ram 1500 crew cabs on all the trim levels. Lone Stars, Laramie, and top-of-the-line Longhorn and Longhorn Limited. Also, you get values up to $3,000 on a Ram 1500 Lone Star crew cab, plus 4.9% financing for 72 months. Pick up the best selection of Ram trucks. Motor Trend, they had that run of truck year after year, Motor Trend Truck of the Year. The Ram trucks on the lot. Allen Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like First Free Checking, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. The First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs. Even offering financing if that's needed, everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel and Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel and Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneersboys.com.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive, North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year. Whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
This is 365 Sports. Are you a Sikkim 365 superfan? Then try out our premium subscriptions at Sikkim365.com.
We just mentioned Jerome Tang, Kansas State, KU, and also wrapped up a little bit of the Big 12. Kansas State with a huge win at home, the atmosphere, the postgame. Tim Fitzgerald, GoPowerCat.com, has been someone we go to when it comes to Kansas State, joins us on 365 Sports. Tim, can you kind of explain? Everyone was excited when he was hired, I'm sure, but what was last night like?
It was great. It was an incredible environment, but Jerome Tang is always coaching. It's something I didn't understand about him. He's coaching his players on and off the court. He's coaching his coaches. He's also coaching his fans and in some ways the media about, trying to have a healthy rivalry and focus on the bigger picture than just playing Kansas every year. But here's my biggest takeaway from a basketball standpoint last night. Kansas State beat the second-rate Kansas Jayhawks and didn't play nearly as well as it can. And I can't say that in any other recent victory over Kansas. It usually takes that great effort, one player to have that super night. Yeah, some guys play great. Keontae Johnson, Desi Fields played great, but Kansas State left a lot out there. They never got the kill shot. They never kind of finished them off until the very end. That just shows what an upside Jerome Tang brought to this program and its staff so quickly. How good this program could be under him is just astonishing.
Outside of the fact that they're 16-2, what was was there just something bubbling under the fan base about the program? Because he's been embraced so fast, and I don't know if he's ever had an environment like that as an assistant coach here at Baylor, in spite of being a part of a national championship run. Unfortunately for them that year, it was COVID, so they didn't get to have him that particular year. But even then, I don't think he's ever had that kind of juice in the stadium like there was last night.
Yeah, you know what, K-State is a basketball school, and recent memory would kind of change that from, the moment Bill Snyder got to go into football, basketball took a dip, and it kind of became a football school. But this school's heritage is in basketball. I mean, 4 Final Fours and a lot of history there with Jack Gardner, Tex Winter, Jack Hartman, Lon Kruger, Dana Altman. That's a pretty good string of coaches in there that they had until they got the Huggins and Martin and Weber and now Jerome. There was a couple coaches in there that didn't do so well, and it kind of evaporated that history a little bit. But underneath, it's always been a basketball school, and this is a basketball state. And now being competitive against Kansas, which honestly not many programs in the Big 12 have been competitive with Kansas, which is a testament to their just consistent success. But he's bringing that back out, and it's really kind of fun to watch. As an old guy who grew up watching games in the Hearn Fieldhouse with Rolando Blackman and that whole era of players, it's fun to see K-State have a new generation of really passionate basketball fans.
When he stood on the table and told fans to, change the chants and all of that, I just said a few minutes ago, I said that there he was changing the culture live, on television basically, or live there in action. And just culturally, how different does it feel there this year versus maybe in years past?
I got to tell you, brother, that was one of the coolest things I've seen a head coach do. Because, in the past, we've had the Billy Tubbses of the world grab the mic for negativity. But here's a big win, and, the fans are on the court. Thousands of students are on the court yelling, FKU, and he gets on the mic and asks them to lead the chant in KSU and says, let's try to keep it positive. Let's try to keep it about us. And like I said, just always coaching. And it's just, I've never met someone like this. And I'm really wrestling at how to deal with it because this guy doesn't just exude kindness. He really wants to make everyone around him better. And I got to be honest, I didn't know Jerome Tang was like this one bit before he was hired at Kansas State. It is incredible to watch up close.
Sounds like what we've known about Coach Tang and same with the Coach Drew is, when people meet Coach Drew for the first time, your thought is, and it's Coach Tang is a little more subdued than Scott, if you can believe that, because Scott is an energy ball. But you kind of think like, there's no way this is consistent. This is 24 hours a day that this guy has this attitude, and then you see him enough, and you're like, well, he's never not been this. Like, it can't be fake anymore. So, and Jerome Tang's kind of cut from that same cloth.
I mean, it's no wonder that they built Baylor literally from ashes to the mountaintop. Mm-hmm. I mean, that kind of positivity will continue to feed, but he's ignited this fan base, and go with what Chris Kleinman's doing on the football field. Guys, it's a great time for K-State fans, but honestly, it's a great time to be covering K-State sports, even as a journalist, because even if I was an alum, even if I was covering a school that didn't have a special place to me, covering winners and covering good people and good kids is a lot more fun than some of the stuff that you have to put up quite often with in the sports industry.
It's a great point. Absolutely. I tell you, there's a Scott Drew thumbprint on the play that actually won the game. There was the turnover at the end, the scramble for the ball, and the time ran out. But the dunk, the alley-oop to Johnson coming out of a break is something that I bet we saw and have seen the last 12 years, at least since I've been here, probably at least once or twice a game in what Baylor ran. I haven't seen it in a while. They have different type of players because they used to be long and angular and tall, and now they're more guard-oriented. But that was a brilliant timeout call. And, again, the shot that they got was amazing and easy, obviously.
It was just saying, my guys are going to execute better than your guys, and my guys can jump higher than your guys. That's what that play was. Yeah. And they did it perfectly. And that is not something Kansas State has ever had the ability to say against Kansas until now. Maybe not since 2008 when Michael Beasley and that crew, brought their wrecking ball to Manhattan. But that was just an incredible pass from Marquise Noel, and Keontae Johnson just jumped higher than a really good basketball player, a really athletic player, and just was so strong he took the ball and dunked it. And that's just Jimmy's and Joe's right there. I mean, it's a great play call, but that's a play call Kansas State, quite frankly, hasn't been able to run in a very long time because they didn't have the guys to do it.
Tim, I feel like I've read the word Bramlage more in the last probably month than I have, seen in 10 years. But how have you felt, or how have you seen just the environment around the program and attendance and excitement during games and all of that? I mean, obviously last night was huge, but in general, how have you seen that evolve over these last couple of months or last 3-4 months?
Well, it's going to be interesting because, the non-conference schedule stunk, and it was one he inherited. But Kansas State fans have this, I don't want to say it's a bad habit. Maybe it is just a cultural thing where they don't really focus on basketball fully until football's done.
Right.
And, part of it's being a smaller fan base and being a fan base in a rural area where, our biggest metro areas are 2 hours away. So it's difficult for a lot of fans to get to games during the midweek or, at certain times of the year. And then when do they open the Big 12 season? Oh, on New Year's Eve when the football team's in New Orleans playing the Sugar Bowl. And then they have 2 games down in Texas with Baylor in Texas. And they come home and play Oklahoma State, and the students aren't here. Last night was the first game since the students have returned for the second semester, the spring semester. And it's the KU game. So you knew it was going to be full. The students didn't need to be here to sell that game out. There would have been fans in the stands. Now you get Saturday against Texas Tech, a not-so-good team, but you got a Saturday afternoon game in the Big 12 with your students on campus. Brother, we're about to find out. And if the environment's like it was on Tuesday, he has done something here that is really special in a very, very short amount of time.
Yeah, and again, even though Texas Tech is 0-6, I saw Cyclone Larry, one of our favorites, on Twitter, who jabs at K-State and vice versa, making the comment he can't wait till like maybe next week when these two teams are going to have this great top 10 matchup. But I said, hey, in the Big 12 in men's basketball, you never look ahead. You can't do it in football very often either, but you never look ahead. He goes, yeah, I'm not worried about Oklahoma State. Well, they led, I think, at Kansas at one point earlier in the season by like 17 points. So you never know. You just never know. Yeah, they're struggling as well. Tim, great stories, good stuff. Enjoy Jerome Tang. I know you will, and so will the fan base. And great environment last night. I hope you're doing okay. I saw some of your tweets about stuff you're dealing with insurance-wise and all of that. Good luck with all of that, my man.
Yeah, well, I'm out of remission and back into the fight, but here we go. I know you guys will be praying for me, and it really means a lot.
It means a lot to us as well. Tim Fitzgerald, GoPowerCat.com. Yeah, that alley-oop, we saw, how many times did we see that with Baylor when they had the long, angular, tall, great athletes that were mainly a big inside team? Twice, 3 times a game?
Jonathan, that was Jonathan Motley's play. That was Jonathan Motley's play. It was Perry Jones's play. It saw that a lot of times. And it was I watching it, you text me right after, watching it, and then watching it back, I said, I should have seen that coming. It looked exactly like a thing we've seen a lot of times.
That's what Bill Self is saying.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. There. And again, I also thought, I think it's pretty unbelievable that, he went up there and it's very hard to be very respectful of your rival like he was. That was about also respecting Kansas, because you know what Jerome Tang knows is that there's going to be a time where they're going to be at Allen Fieldhouse, and that's going to come back around.
Yep.
And he doesn't want his players to have that feeling, right? It's about those guys from Kansas played a hard-fought game. Is it necessary to have to say that to them? No, it's probably fun, if you're a fan, you're really into it. But again, it's also about, getting Kansas out of your heads and figuring out they're the rival, but you can't, they can't just be your only measuring stick.
It's about trying to look them in the eye and not look up at them all the time and be clamoring to be them or take them down, or it's all about them. It's about saying, no, we are our own thing. We don't have to worry about we can look them eye to eye and do it respectfully but competitively. And I think it was a great thing that he did last night. I think it was a great message sent. I think far too often there's certain fan bases that get other rivals in their heads and just
burn.
Yeah, or whoever it is, Baylor and TCU here lately, it just gets, it's like, okay, well, what about all of the good things that you've got going on? But no, everything's bad because the team that we don't like is doing good in this stuff. And so I was, as soon as he said that, I was like, genius. That was genius, because look, you're never going to be able to say you've got as many national titles. You're never going to be able to say you've won as much as they have. You're never going to be able to say you've done this or that. But you can start to change the culture to where it's not about what they've done. It's about what you're doing. And, it just so happens that, like last night, that means you run over Kansas for the first time in a really long time, or one of the few times in your entire history, then it magnifies it and makes it an absolutely giant deal. But make it about the fact that Kansas State won a game and not the fact that Kansas lost a game.
And that's what he was trying to say about the chant. By the way, Derek on the chat room, they do that every game. KU lives rent-free in their heads. That's part of what Jerome Tang is trying to slowly change. It's just like Texas, no matter what they've been through the last 10 or 11 years in football, there are still some teams that hyperventilate. Not as many. And then this year they kind of had themselves a little bit better year as they try to get back to, if they can, to the top of a conference in the country. But yeah, there's just certain teams, man, they get in your head. In this case, no wonder when they're 38-6 or whatever, the 32-8, whatever the story is, the dominance of KU basketball, not just against Kansas State, but against most everybody in the Big 12. All right, when we come back, a couple of nuggets to get to. We'll get to the chat room. We'll check the text line, 254-339-1122. Jaden Rashada and the Michigan coach, who seems to be maybe in possibly some hot water. That and more, this is 365 Sports. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco is under construction on the inside right now. They're doing a lot of the new floor. They are renovating the locker rooms. They are doing a lot where everyone's just kind of figuring it out. wherever the weights are, wherever the Cybex machines are, wherever the Stairmaster or wherever the treadmills are, as they are renovating parts of the inside of that facility. The tennis courts, the tennis academy, Tennis Pro Britt Coleman, pickleball, all of that. Man, it's going smoothly and everything out there is fantastic behind the building. But on the inside, as they show more growth, and on the inside as they show more energy, there's a lot going on as they continue to try to improve the amenities and also the atmosphere for the members at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
I hate my job, but I don't mind getting up in the morning. I dread each day, but I can't wait to get out of bed. You ask me why, and what I'll say to you is true. Well, you can get breakfast tacos at Rudy's Barbecue. Scrambled eggs and brisket, they ain't fooling around. Salsa drap, son, they're the best in town. Barbecue for breakfast, yes, it's true. Put a smile on your morning at Rudy's Barbecue. Next in line.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit Marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Baylor Scott & White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott & White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Boots add protection. Good boots help you climb better and move forward faster. And when your son or daughter steps into the boots of a U.S. Army officer, they also learn how to lead. In these boots, they'll gain more confidence with expert training in one of more than 150 occupational specialties. In these boots, they'll stand a little taller and lead a team with diverse backgrounds and areas of expertise to successfully accomplish whatever challenge comes next. In these boots, they'll earn respect with valuable experience from day one that will give them solid footing for success into the future. Highly qualified candidates who earn a spot on our team can receive comprehensive health care coverage, college tuition assistance, and a bonus of up to $40,000. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
In the chat room, I love to try to learn something whenever we can. We always have room for that. Wesley Coates, students have stopped chanting it, the FUKU at least. If Wesley Coates, he's a student at Kansas State. Wesley, thanks for watching us. Also has the Kansas City Chiefs helmet, the logo on his name. Also from Austin, Texas, Shaka and Beard beat Self a lot. Where are they now? Texas has had some success against Kansas.
Yeah, why doesn't Beard have his job now?
Yeah, but it's not.
Oh, wait, it has nothing to do with basketball.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Like, is that a dig at
He
Tang?
was joking.
Okay.
He was
I was gonna say, like, yeah. I mean, it's one game. I mean, I do think that people need to not overreact and need to be careful about that. But they're, 20 plus games into the season with 2 losses over their heads. I mean, it's pretty amazing. And to have that be your first dance with Kansas and to end in dramatic fashion, win like that. I mean, it just feels like this isn't one of those lucky starts or, flash in the pan type of things, and then everybody's going to adjust and be ready for it, and they're going to be, just average next year. I mean, it just feels like it really is something that's pretty great that's, right in the beginning stages, and that last night just was a further cherry or more icing on the cake, and I don't know what the cherry on top will ultimately be, but they're right there at the top of the standings right now. They've got a big game now behind them. They should beat Texas Tech, given what Texas Tech looks like at the moment, and then that sets up what would be a monstrous game next week with Iowa State.
Yeah,
I mean, that game could be insanely built up if both can handle their business, the rest of this week. But yeah, it's a day-by-day thing, but man, they're cruising right now.
Simon 2077 mentioned earlier in the chat that you just don't understand if you don't understand if you're not from the Kansas area. And I asked him, I said, well, educate everybody. Unless you live in Kansas, you don't understand. KU has always been given the best by the state. This is from a K-State fan. So, yes, we get sick and tired of the little brother attitude and disrespect, hence the chant. Daniel, a lot of fans like to bring up overall record against a school, UT in football, when they're being beaten. It's such a weak argument. Yeah, there are a lot of schools that have not been successful the last 8 or 10 or 12 years that like to say, yeah, but we've got 5 national titles and 800 wins.
Oh, well, we've got 5 too. Oh, well, we got 4 Heisman.
Yeah.
Oh, we got 4. Oh, well, we got 75 All-Americans. Oh, well, and then it just goes on to one thing after the other. Then all of a sudden you're talking about, like scholarly awards. You're getting into like how many.
Well, it's like the TV rankings and then the money and the budget.
No, we got better TV ratings.
Endowments larger.
Yeah.
Also,
part of the fun.
From Timothy, K-State versus Kansas is an ag school versus state's landmark university. It's a story in almost every state. From Derek, part of the perceived little brother attitude is also that Kansas viewed Missouri as their primary rival. And I get that. I think for a long time, I'm not going to say that was true, but I understand that. Carl Page, K-State's a good school. Only KU fans think K-State is an ag school. A bit of an insult, if you ask me. Every school, there's a tier. There's a tier. And some that are even like blue bloods have those who think that they're still like little brother in certain particular ways. And then, and now K-State, Kansas fans, you guys go out in the chat room. I'm not getting in the middle of all that, but it was a hellacious game last night.
I'll just tell you, if you get too focused on the premier rival in your conference, the one that, your measuring stick, you're going to wind up becoming Auburn, where your alumni are insane. And when you have a football coach opening for what would be a job that people should run to, look, I'll just compare it to LSU. LSU had a bunch of stuff going on with Ed Orgeron, the 2 coaches that left, or Ed Orgeron, Les Miles, a lot of stuff going around the program with players. But when that job opened up, no matter what was going on, they had people ready to run to it. Brian Kelly's the all-time winningest coach at Notre freaking Dame. Now, he hasn't won a national championship, but he has more wins than anybody that's ever coached at Notre Dame, more than Lou Holtz, more than Lou Rockne, more than anybody. And he left that program to sprint to Baton Rouge to get it. Auburn has the program job open up, and you have to go hire someone who pretty much is desperate to get back in, as opposed to people sprinting to you because you hired someone and within 6 months you're accusing him of all this stuff all over the place because you didn't like the hire and you had second thoughts about Brian Harsin and you've made it look kind of nuts. Whereas when Auburn opens up, however it does, you should be sprinting there.
You know who's had success against Alabama in football, though, for the most part? Auburn.
Yeah, but
it's not like they haven't beaten Alabama. It's not like they've never beaten Alabama. They've actually had some pretty damn good success. Again, you can go back 100 years. I don't care. But recently, there's been some incredible moments in Auburn football history. From Rip Serwin 1, I'm a KSU fan, and yes, there's a little brother complex. Nothing wrong with it. We aren't in control of the results on the court and field or the traditions. We can only react to it. All right, there you go. Thanks for that particular feedback as well. And someone said, what the hell's wrong with being an ag school? I love farmers. I'm from Nebraska, although I only lived there for one short amount of time of my 63 years. All right.
Carl Page does make a thing. Auburn did have their tree poisoned by an Alabama fan. So, yes, it does. It always swings both ways. My point was that's at the lower level. That's at the crazy redneck Feinbaum listener guy, as opposed to the higher levels where that pervasive little brother syndrome is there for the money. The money has it. The people who are watering that tree, they have it. And that's where you don't want it. Fans, they're always going to have it, but you don't want your decision makers to always be obsessed with the other guy.
Derek, Carl, Jack, Steve, Simon, Tim, all of you, many of you, Mike, appreciate your going back and forth and kind of just going at it a little bit. And then some of you maybe can work it out on the rivalry between Kansas and Kansas State. Jaden Rashada. We do have Steve Johnson for the Fort Worth Star-Telegram in the next segment. Jaden Rashada, Paul, Craig, has he gotten his release?
He's requested it. So he hadn't even officially requested it yet, but it has gotten to the point where he has requested his release from his national letter of intent from Florida. And this is a situation that I think most coaches, athletic directors, all over the place knew was going to happen and are relieved it has, at least to this point, not happened to them. And hopefully after Jaden Rashada will not happen that much more, since it will serve as a cautionary tale. And I've thought about this from all angles. But look, if you're 19 years old and you negotiate your way to $13 million, as ridiculous as we all might think that is, if you negotiate it and people tell you they're going to give it to you, you'd be stupid not to do it. And especially going to a place that you kind of felt like you wanted to go. Now, on the other end of it, I do think that Jaden Rashada might have gotten out over his skis and thinking about the money first as opposed to the fit, because if he really is as good as he appears to be and as close to a sure thing as people say he might be, then the money's going to come. But even still, this is just a mess and shows you that, people will promise things and then you get down the road when it comes time to deliver, and then it starts a lot of finger pointing of like, well, I thought you were paying for that. Well, I don't want to be in for that much money. Well, why are we paying this kid $13 million? He's not even taken a class yet. He's not even here. He hasn't taken a snap. We haven't seen spring practice. What if he sucks? I'm still going to have to give this kid $13 million? Because if there's contracts, then you've got to go through breach of contract and all that. So, yeah, this is a really multi-layered, spiny issue, but I think most coaches are happy that it didn't happen to them, and Billy Napier now has to dig out of a hole.
Yeah, it's not surprising. This was bound to happen at some point in time.
Yep.
And the stupidity here is not Jaden Rashada or his people. It's whatever stupid Florida boosters thought that $13 million would be something great to offer this quarterback prospect when you could go a million different ways and spend far less money and get just as good of a player. And certainly if you'd have gotten one snap out of anybody, it would have been better than whatever you got out of Jaden Rashada. Mm-hmm. So well done, adults that just, I guess just had to open those purse strings as wide as possible to make sure they landed this transcending type level player that, obviously is never going to suit up for them from here on out. He'll never probably don blue and orange unless there's like an XFL team that wears those colors or something. But yeah, just a joke, a total joke of an outcome on the part of Florida. And, I don't know to what degree Rashada or his family or, whoever all these people are that are involved, I don't know where to point fingers and say, like, well, you deserve some of this blame and you deserve some of this blame. I'm sure everybody had a hand in it to some extent, but we shouldn't be looking at the 17, 18-year-old and looking at him like he's the one that should be leading the way here. Like I'm sure I wouldn't handle $13 million, my 17, 18-year-old self being thrown at me very well. And so it's up to the adults to try and make this as, professional and right as possible. And clearly there were just a bunch of people who either didn't have the best interest at heart or didn't actually have what they were talking about having really secured, and don't know what the word commitment means, clearly, because this has turned into the exact opposite of whatever it was supposed to be. And it's not a bad look that's going to, be a stain on Florida football for a long time. But it will hurt if he goes off somewhere and plays like the 5-star that apparently somebody thought was worth $10+ million over the next few years. So we'll watch him just now to see like what the hype was all about. And for Florida, I know they've had to maneuver, go get Graham Mertz, for example, and we'll see what happens there. But this is one of those chapters in Billy Napier's, albeit short history, that you are going to circle or put a little tab next to and probably revisit based on how the next couple of years go, and especially if they don't have very good quarterback play. I mean, this will be a fumbling of the bag, literally, that, maybe comes back to haunt them in more ways than just a few headlines here over the next few days. But, yeah, this was inevitable, and congratulations to Florida. I guess, Miami had their dalliances with, controversy in terms of the NIL scape with, their whatever that guy's name is, the LifeLock guy, in the early days, and now here's Florida, and that state, man, I'm not surprised, honestly. I'm not surprised. Just wondering when FSU's turn is, but their culture seems to be pretty good right now, unlike the other two, so maybe they won't be caught up in all that.
Yeah, it feels like somebody's sitting on my chest because, again, I feel like it could be any school that does this and gets out, you get some guys that are rich but not that rich out over their skis promising things. My biggest question, I do feel bad, wherever Jaden Rashada goes next, he's going to have to deal with this was what people will remember about him, and whether that's fair or not. But how do you move him into a locker room in another place? He's not going to get $13 million anywhere else. I mean, you wouldn't think, but where does this go? Like, how does he restart this whole process and get somewhere where he wants to be?
Go somewhere and play and do well.
I don't think the players care, man. They're like, hey, go make your money, man. Like they don't care. I think that they just want to have a great quarterback. So if he goes walking into Miami's or to whoever Miami's locker room or to West Virginia, I mean, whoever it is, it's going to be in contention for him. I think the players will embrace him and be happy that they got some, 5-star stud quarterback that apparently somebody thought was worth millions of dollars before ever stepping foot on a college football field. And so he'll be fine. You just wonder, or I just wonder at least, is like if he's going to be a Tate Martell. Or is he going to be a guy that actually matters in the grand scheme of things? And by that, I mean Tate Martell, we spent a lot of time on various college football websites or radio shows talking about a guy who never ended up mattering one iota on the field. And look, he had a better career than I will ever have, so I'm not trying to diminish him as a football player, but that turned out to be a pretty big joke by the end of it. The whole transferring left and right for starting jobs and not winning them and then moving on again, and it just became kind of a meme more than it ever became a real career to talk about. And so for Jaden Rashada, I just hope he avoids that fate, and we do see him out there and see why he was billed the way he was billed for starters.
Todd Berry told us about a year ago, coming off the Football Coaches Convention, that there were coaches who had boosters contacting players and offering them NIL, even though the school or the players or the coaches, the staff, had not even offered said players. When we come back, he covers TCU, Steven Johnson, on the Kendall Briles story that he's going to be the new offensive coordinator under Sonny Dykes. His thoughts about it next on 365 Sports. PettyClinicLOT.com. Dr. Kent Petty can help you become the high-performance man you want to be, used to be, and, need to be. Here's what happens. As you get older, father time can take over certain men differently than others. Certain things happen. And in the case of testosterone levels for some, in fact, about 33%, one of every 3 men, testosterone levels drop. What happens when that happens? Well, you don't sleep as well. Your energy and your focus is not the same. Sex drive, whatever it might be, it could be some of that, all of that. Dr. Kent Petty with his website, PettyClinicLOT.com. Contact them, top corner, email and phone number, and tell them that you've had some of that, some of the symptoms I've brought up. He then will set you up to get your blood work. He'll take care of that. He'll get the results, contact you as someone with staff, and if your testosterone levels, if you're 1 out of every 3 men with issues on that, then he can put you in a program to increase your testosterone levels so you can become the high-performance man you want to be, need to be, and used to be at pettycliniclowt.com.
Payments for qualified buyers at 5.49% for 72 with 5,000 down, cash or trade, TT electric, see deal for details. It's the New Year, New Ride pre-owned savings event at Richard Carr with the biggest selection in years on pre-owned cars and trucks. Qualified buyers can find great deals like a 2014 Buick Encore for only $149 a month, or a 2015 Kia Sorento for $237 a month, or a 2015 Ford F-150 truck for $392 a month. Over 80 used, thoroughly inspected vehicles in stock. 100% approval is always our goal. Get here now for the New Year, New Ride savings event at Richard Carr.
At Richard Carr, we give you more.
What are you waiting for? Next year's New Year's resolution to lose weight, get fit, start working out? 3, 2, 1, go to Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness. If you really want to get in shape, get rid of weight or inches, you have to make a commitment to work out, and the excuses of not enough time, you're too tired or too busy. There's a special place that will change your life at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco. And they have a commitment to you too. With personal trainers Christy London, Randall Corley, and Alex Bosch. State-of-the-art Cybex equipment, new weights and spin bikes, clean and spacious locker rooms, each with a whirlpool and sauna, and a staff that will know your name when you walk through the front door. Elite tennis facilities and a great tennis pro in Britt Coleman. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness is a place you can call home, a place you can work out on your own or with 40-plus group exercise classes. It's time for you to get in shape, lose inches, get fit at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lake Shore Drive in Waco.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Chuck Verno, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Chuck Verno, 720 North 64th Street in Waco, 254-732-1161. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Howdy, Chet Garner here, professional guide, searching for bears in the wild. But not just any bears, oh no, a particular kind. With hundreds of thousands roaming freely in the wild, yet still hard to spot unless you know the signs. There they are, Baylor bears. If you're a bear enthusiast or even a bear yourself, join me and let's find some bears in the wild.
Join the expedition at baylor.edu/alumni.
Hi, this is Paul Catalina. I recently got engaged to the love of my life, but the most important thing that I had to do before I popped the question was get that perfect ring. And I know nothing about rings. So I went to the wedding ring store, Boozer's Jewelers on Valley Mills Drive. I knew I needed a custom design, and that's exactly what they do. 9 out of 10 of their engagement rings are designed in-house. The entire process took less than a month, and they were great every step of the way. Great options on financing, excellent selection, and talented designers. My fiance and I get nonstop compliments on the ring. I only deserve credit for doing the smartest thing I could, walking into Boozers and letting them work their magic. Your one-of-a-kind fiance deserves a one-of-a-kind ring, and that's what you get at Boozers. Boozers Jewelers, the wedding ring store on Valley Mills Drive.
This is 365 Sports. Are you a Sikkim 365 super fan? Then try out our premium subscriptions at Sikkim365.com.
Thanks to Larry Pilgrim, $10 super chat on the chat room. Also, Steve Frog fan on a question. In fact, good timing on Kendall Briles and the hire with TCU. And we're now joined by Stephen Johnson, Fort Worth Star-Telegram. We had Stephen on quite a bit, the great journey of the TCU football program. And I read the column he wrote about the interest in Kendall Briles by TCU. Stephen, thanks for your time with Paul, Craig, and David. What has been the reaction based on what you've seen? And is it 50-50, or is there a lot of, my God, why are we doing this?
I would say it's been overwhelmingly, my God, why are we doing this? The name was floated, I think, on Saturday. Briles' name was floated on Saturday, and the immediate reaction was one of, why are we doing this? I can't believe we're doing this. There's got to be somebody better. And so then, things kind of cooled down. We didn't hear anything else over the weekend. Then I talked to some people, and as I laid out in the column, they admitted, man, there was, I think, some belief or some hope that some of the blowback would die down with a couple of days, a couple more news cycles. But, I think after kind of mulling the offer over, all sources indicate Briles is coming to TCU. And I think the reaction is only going to get worse before it gets better, if it ever does.
How does the TCU, of course you haven't heard officially, but how does the TCU administration feel about this? I mean, I know that a lot of the blowback is out there and it's social media PR, but this is his 5th job. I mean, 4 other places have vetted him. How much do they have to be transparent in that process to quiet the fan base down?
Well, I think they absolutely should because, like I said, they built up so much goodwill over the last year, obviously winning games, but just making the program more open, more accessible to the fans. You know, you talk to different people, being able to come to practices, the games, and all those other stuff. Those small things have really built up a lot of goodwill. So I think the question, for them is they have to weigh, do we want to use some of that on this offensive coordinator hire? And I think what was the deciding factor was Sonny Dykes has known Kendall Briles for a long time. And I guess in terms of vetting, like he kind of did with Kyle Sazzotti, was with him at SMU, and now was on the staff with TCU as a strength and conditioning coach. I guess they're just trusting in Sonny. And Sonny's kind of his gut and his knowledge of his relationships with Briles and things like that. So they're aware of the pushback, but I think they're just kind of, they're trusting in Sonny on this one. So it's a move that's a risk, it's a gamble, and hey, for their sake, I hope he puts up a lot of points.
Do you think this, and I know we have no way of knowing, Steven, but do you think if they had won, 7 games this year, this is a move they still try to pull off? Or is it, like you said, that goodwill that was boosted by, ended up in the national championship game, trusting the process that got them there?
Oh, no. After they went 7-5, 7-6, I couldn't see a way they could make this higher. Because then it's like, we had an okay football product, modest improvement. And now we exit the Gary Patterson era, have an okay season, then we kind of hire the son of our arch nemesis. So, no, I don't think it's a move you make if you're around 500. But, hey, when you win 13 games, you appear in the national championship. And, look, I don't think Kendall his offense have been as prolific as they were when he kind of got his start at Baylor, Houston, Florida Atlantic. But we can't act like he's a bad coach or anything like that. His offense has still been productive. He's a good OC. So, if his name wasn't Briles, I said in my column, he checked most of the boxes that would make this a good hire.
Well, one of the other things, if they would have been 7-6 or something like that, Garrett Riley would probably not be at Clemson. So that would probably have stopped that flow right then and there. So I read your column, and you mentioned the goodwill. You mentioned a lot of things. But you also said something that kind of caught my attention. Is this something that they even needed to do, that there were other options as well? Your thoughts about, do you know whether he was the first one that Dykes contacted and this was who they wanted to hire from the beginning?
I think that he was definitely one of the favorites. Because one of the things I think Sonny wants in his offensive coordinator is somebody that can coach quarterback. That's what Garrett Riley did. Kendall has been doing that since 2015. He's done it almost every stop. And like I said, he has deep Texas ties from the time at Baylor, Houston. He runs kind of a similar offense to the air raid, his own kind of variation. And in his variation, just like Garrett, there's a big premium on running the ball. Arkansas had one of the top rushing offenses in the country with K.J. Jefferson and those staples for running back. So I honestly think he's also a pretty young guy. I think he's 40, if I remember correctly. So I think he was kind of, if not 1A, he was probably 1B. You know what I mean, in terms of the guys that they could realistically get. So I think he was one of, and the fact that over the weekend we didn't hear any other names pop up, or really even this week, that lets me know that he was kind of the guy they really wanted from the jump. And, hey, they said we're going to endure this storm of criticism and blowback, and we think it's going to work out. So we're about to see.
Is any of the criticism coming from people who would even make them change their mind, or is it from just, everyday Joe fan?
That's a good question. In the last couple of days, I've heard some more prominent people, some more prominent alums like Joel Anderson, a former player, now a media personality on Twitter. I've had some former athletes, and I think maybe even some athletic donors reach out to me about how disappointed they were about the decision. Brenda Trace, I believe is her name, is a sexual assault kind of an advocate. I want to say a survivor as well, too. She's been very outspoken on social media as kind of their story has picked up traction. So there's been some pushback, but I'm guessing that enough of the big donors, enough of the families that are kind of really investing in the program right now, I'm guessing enough of them signed off on it, man. If the big money supports it, man, I think their opinion is not the only one that matters, but we all know that their opinion carries a little bit more weight than mine or even the casual fan.
Steven, just looking at what he walks into, I mean, Max Duggan made his decision. We know Quentin Johnston's off now. I mean, losing both running backs and DeMercado and also Kendry Miller. And there's others as well along the offensive line at the skill spots. I mean, they're turning over quite a bit. So what do you feel like Kendall Briles is walking into? And I know people will naturally also start speculating about, hey, is KJ Jefferson going to come, waltzing right behind him? How do you view the situation with KB for starters?
Well, I think for him it's going to be a little bit tricky because they have so much turnover. I think it's going to be extremely hard to replicate the same success that the offense had last year. They were at the top of their developmental cycle. A lot of those guys are seniors, fifth-year seniors and juniors and things of that nature. So they had a ton of upperclassmen in the 2D. So it's going to be a younger roster. They kind of reloaded a bit in the transfer portal. But I think when he kind of walks into that scenario, he's walking into a scenario where he's probably not going to be able to live up to what Garrett Riley did on offense last year, which is only going to kind of increase some of the pressure on him because then you're going to have fans saying, hey, our offense isn't as good as last, which probably won't all be Kendall's fault. But I do think there's still plenty of talent. I love some of the young talent they got on the roster. Trent Battle at running back, Jordan Hudson at receiver, Cordell Russell's an early enrollee, a guy that's kind of moved up to become a top 50 recruit on some outlet, the wide receiver. So they have some talent, man. If they can kind of just regroup on the trenches, I think they can still be very productive. And I know Kendall really likes running the ball, so I still expect them to have a balanced offense. They're still averaging 30-plus points a game.
Stephen, Paul asked something about the blowback, and could it be still another wave? And you kind of mentioned that as well. Do you feel like now that it's been released, although I don't know if it's officially released or not, but do you feel like it made it through the first wave, that there's no way that this could stop now that he's in?
I think he's in now. I don't think the blowback's done because the official announcement isn't out, but, whenever the school officially puts it out in their Twitter page, I'm not sure if that – I think normally they would probably want to do some type of press conference. That'll tell me a lot about how they're kind of viewing it, if they make him available to the media pretty quickly here after he's hired, or do they just kind of send out an email and just kind of try to get it done like that. But I can't foresee anything that will kind of, cause TCU to back out of the deal. Briles has been considered for the last few days, so he's all in. So I think Briles is coming here regardless of if the outcry kind of increases or decreases.
What would you ask him if you had a chance to?
I would ask him firstly, does he understand why so many TCU fans have this trepidation about him coming to their program, leading the offense? And then secondly, I would ask him, what has he learned? How has he grown from that? Obviously, he wasn't named in any of the lawsuits or any wrongdoing, I should say. But then in another lawsuit, of course, is a comment about asking the recruit, do you like white women? We have plenty of them at Baylor. That's something I think he needs to answer for. Like, how has he grown from that? Does he understand why that's problematic? And, TCU is almost 60% women. So what would be his message to them and how he plans to show that he's grown a lot from just being at Baylor in the middle of that scandal?
Do the TCU coordinators talk very often? Because I know some places that's a weekly thing, and some places we hardly hear from them if it's not the off season.
They talked a lot to us this season, man.
Okay.
I would say maybe I feel like we would get Riley and Joe Gillespie, the defensive coordinator. If we got Riley one, we would get Gillespie the next week. If we wanted to get a position coach, we could get Anthony Jones or Paul Gonzalez or Malcolm Kelly, anybody we wanted. So at TCU under Sonny Dykes that first year, yeah, they were very visible, and that's why I think to me this move was a bit different than hiring Kaz Kazadi because Kaz is kind of behind the scenes. Right. If you're around the program, and things like that. If you're doing like a feature story on nutrition, that's when you talk to Kaz. But Kendall's going to be the most visible person on Sonny Dykes' staff now, which is another reason why this decision was so fascinating.
Speaking of Kaz Kazadi, Carlton Buckles, among others, there are former Baylor staff members that have been a part of TCU. Sonny Dykes had him at SMU. Now he has him at TCU. Did you ever feel or get any blowback at all with any of them? I never sensed that at all. Is it just the last name of Kendall?
I think Kendall's last name has the overwhelming majority of kind of the blowback. I know when Cobb was initially hired, there was some pushback. That was before I got down here, but I remember some of my former colleagues kind of covering it, making the case for it. But even with Cobb, I think that was easier for people to stomach because he had been with Sonny for about 4 years at that time at SMU. So in that way, it was like Sonny was like, hey, this guy's been with me. I can vouch for how he's grown. I can vouch that he's not the same type of person he was in Baylor. But this one is a little bit different because he does have that Briles last name. And even though Sonny knows him, I think many probably don't know about their prior connection. So I think the last name has a lot to do with it. And I just think the comment about do you like white women, it's just so inflammatory, especially now in this current climate. And I think all those kind of factors weigh into why there's been so much pushback and so much negative reaction to this hire.
Stephen, I don't know if you could answer this or not, but do you feel like there was any kind of a Sonny Dykes by any means saying, this is who I want, I don't care about the blowback? And Sonny Dykes is a cool dude. We love to have him on the show. Fantastic, proud of what he's done. But do you feel like there was any kind of a, this is who I want, this is my foot hitting, like drawing a line, don't change this. And otherwise it could create some problems there.
Well, this is going to be speculation on my part. I don't know if Sonny put his foot down, but I think knowing him and how he approaches things, I could see a scenario where he went to Jeremiah Donati like, hey, I know the pushback is tough. I get it, but I know this guy. I know this guy since he was a kid, teenager. I can personally vouch for him. I believe in him. I trust in him. So I think he put his foot down in his own way. Maybe not in the sense of Sonny is a very thoughtful coach. He's very mindful of what's going on. Not in the sense like he's swayed by it. Like I said, that media savviness he showed in kind of getting more attention to the brand, that was him being thoughtful. So I think he will probably be, I think he considers a blowback, but I think this was just a situation where the program is putting a lot of faith in him, putting a lot of trust in it, and he's earned that in year one. So I guess this was, in a sense, kind of like you said, but I think Sonny's probably overall tactic was a little bit different.
Thank you, Stephen. Appreciate it, and enjoyed your column when you wrote it 2 or 3 days ago. Thanks for your time. Stephen Johnson covers TCU for the Fort Worth Star-Telegram here on 365 Sports.
Yeah, I mean, that's, brought up a lot of valid things there with TCU going on, but it doesn't look like it's going to change. And curious to hear what Jeremiah Donati says and what Sonny Dykes says and how much Kendall does speak to the media about it. But I do think after hearing that, part of me thinks that maybe when Sonny initially did it, he probably thought that the storm was over when it came to Kendall because, again, it's his 5th job. But maybe did not factor into the account that, TCU fans have never had a good feeling about him ever. And, even before the scandal didn't like him anyway. So you throw that in there, it was just bound to happen this way.
You're right. He's been hired many, many times, and I think Sonny Dykes probably. I think he's in a position talking about all the goodwill, and I think Sonny Dykes said, "This is who I want," and you never know when if he wants. This is who he wants in Kendall, and obviously he did. And blowback or not, you just never know how a relationship can start to splinter a little bit if, in fact, this thing was overridden by anybody, TCU presidents, administrators, board, whoever. AD, whatever else. All right, it's 4:40 when we come back. Iowa State last night with a critical win against Texas in a game in Ames as they separated in the last, 4 or 5 minutes of that game. And we'll come back and hear from Randy Peterson, the Des Moines Register. Iowa State last year, remember, 2 years ago, they were terrible. 2-22, coaching change. And then last year they made a run in the tournament, having a great run already this year like Kansas State, except they were expected to be better. And that with Randy Peterson next on 365 Sports.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street in Waco, a hidden gem. Look, I've seen them. They have a big Happy Dad Seltzer out on their social media today. Happy Dad Seltzer was retweeting that. Big new display there, a Happy Dad. That's a very popular brand, and people kind of run to it when you have big new releases. They have new flavors and things that come out. So that's going on right now at Riverbend Liquor and Wine. Also, best selection of Texas craft whiskeys anywhere. I was watching a show the other day, and somebody had a bottle of TX whiskey, and I said, you know what, I'm going to mention that in the spot. You can get that at Riverbend Liquor and Wine. It's a fantastic whiskey. It's well known all over the country. They have all the different varieties and brands. And if it's from Texas and it's bourbon, they pretty much have it at Riverbend Liquor and Wine and all of its family there. That's what they do. Great bourbons, great selection, great everything. That's Riverbend Liquor and Wine. Superior customer service, a speedy drive-through window, and they're available on DoorDash. Check out their promotions on Instagram or just pop by the store.
Kick off 2023 with a bang at the Start Something New sales event. Start your year off with incredible savings like 2.9% for 72 months on 2022 Ram 1500 crew cabs on all trim levels. Lone Stars, Laramies, and top-of-the-line Longhorn and Longhorn Limited, or get values up to $3,750 on a Ram 1500 Lone Star crew cab, plus 4.9% for 72 months. Pick from the best selection of Ram trucks in Central Texas at Allen Samuels in Waco.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon wrap fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes, cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links. Fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Thanks to Carter, Faith, Jacob, Jack, Emery, all in studio. Garrett as well today here at 365 Sports, and we're here on the set. Paul Catalina to my left, Craig Smoak to my right. I'm David Smoak, and Randy Peterson, Des Moines Register, joins us on 365 Sports. And Randy, I think the expectations for Iowa State basketball were pretty nice, and they should be after the year they had last year in the tournament as well. Have they even outdone that, at least up until now?
I would say so. First of all, thanks guys for having me on. I always like being on with you guys. As I look outside my window right now and see it snowing. So anyway, but that's okay. It's winter. That's what we do. Yeah, I would say that Iowa State has exceeded at least the coaches' expectations. I think Big 12 coaches expected them. They picked them 8th, I believe. And now after 6 games, they're tied for the lead in the Big 12. So I would say they're exceeding expectations. And I wrote this morning after last night's game against Texas, that as of at comparable points in the last 2 seasons, and last season was the Sweet 16 season now, Iowa State's playing better right now than they were because they can score. They can get scoring out of 3 and maybe 3.5 positions, whereas last year they got scoring out of 1 position, and Tyrese Hunter, the freshman of the year point guard from Iowa State last year, who's now at Texas, he wasn't exactly a scorer, 27% shooter. So yeah, Iowa State's exceeding everyone's expectations right now, I think.
How cathartic was that for not only the fan base, but maybe for the Iowa State team themselves? They lost the freshman. They lost that guy, Tyrese Hunter, and he went in the conference, and they went down and beat the team that he's on and beat him. That had to make everybody feel better, because I imagine at the beginning of the season, after you lose the freshman of the year, there's a little bit of panic of how do you replace that guy?
I don't know whether there was panic, because I was then, as soon as they lost Tyrese, TJ Otzelberger, the coach, got a point guard out of the portal, Jeremiah Williams from St. Bonaventure, in the same portal transfer deal. I don't know. I think you can call them a deal now, since everybody's just on 1-year contracts anymore. It seems like. Got a post player, Oshun Osunai from St. Bonaventure, and by the way, got the St. Bonnie's point guard, Jeremiah Williams. Well, during practice, Jeremiah Williams got hurt in preseason practice. He's going, and he's not going to play this year. So yeah, there was panic, and that meant a true freshman would have to run the point again. And get this, guys, last night the true freshman, Taman Lipsey, who came from Ames High School, the true freshman held Tyrese scoreless in the second half. Tyrese Hunter had 6, or the game's first 6 points. He had 10 at halftime and did not score in the second half because of the defense played by the guy who's playing that position that he played for Iowa State right now, if that makes sense. So, and then after the game, I caught up with Tyrese and I talked to him, because the fans were just, wow. Hilton was as crazy as I've seen it for a long, long time. You guys know all the stories about Hilton Magic and all that stuff. I've never believed in Hilton Magic in 2022 when they went, or 2000, whatever it was, 2 years ago when they went 2-22. That made me really think that there's no magic here. But last night the place was just cranked, and it was because of, a lot of it was because of Tyrese being there, and the students were chanting at him some very off-color stuff, but he expected it. I mean, it was as jacked up last night as I've seen for anybody. I mean, even some of the Kansas games I've seen over the years, and I've seen a few games at Hilton. The last night was really off the charts. It was wow, yeah. But Tyrese is very complimentary after the game of the fans, because he knew it was coming. He knew exactly what was coming. They didn't throw anything on the floor. I take that back. They threw paper money on the floor during warm-ups, and I suppose that was symbolic of name, image, and likeness, I'm assuming. But they were brutally honest in their assessment and their chance, but it was exactly what to be expected. Tyrese expected it, and Tyrese was very complimentary of Taman Lipsey, the point guard, the true freshman point guard, who is playing the same role now very well that Tyrese played last year.
Head coach mentioned this despite the change with Hunter and incoming, and everyone's a part of this. You have incoming, outcoming, attrition, addition. They've got a rugged toughness to them. This is in your article in the Des Moines Register. A togetherness. People talk about how connected we are, and he talked about 20 years, the most connected group. That's not easy in this day and age of transfer portal, is it?
Tell me about it. Yeah, because these, like you guys know, and like I said a few minutes ago, these guys are on one-year contracts. A lot of these guys are anymore. It seems like they're just one-year contracts. They're here they come and play for a year, and then, excuse me, somebody can find a better situation, shall we say, somewhere else, and so yeah. But for some, TJ he's got the knack. And he did it when he was an assistant coach for Fred. He did it when he was an assistant, coach at Iowa State for Greg McDermott, even before Fred Hoiberg. He's recruited guys, transfers, who fit the culture that they want very well. I mean, the culture this last couple of years that they're looking for are players that can play defense and get along and are very satisfied with averaging 25 minutes, not being the primary, the ball dominant player all the time. And he's got those guys to mesh together. And that's what he means about the cultural fit and the chemistry. As far as the rugged toughness, these guys, this is as probably the most rugged toughness team that I've seen, and as you guys know, I've seen a few Iowa State teams over the years. This is as rugged a defensive, most aggressive defensive team I've seen at Iowa State, and they do it. It's controlled aggression. I mean, they're not out there just hacking the heck out of everybody. They know what they're doing out there defensively, and that's become the identity of these TJ Otzelberger teams, and so far it's paying off.
Sometimes you can make a mistake in hiring a coach because he was an assistant on the teams that were successful, and you think he's really gonna understand the culture better, and that just doesn't work out. Or maybe you hired the wrong assistant from that staff. You should have hired the other one. But what is it different about TJ Otzelberger that it's not he's just trying to recreate what Fred Hoiberg and McDermott did? He's doing it his way, but also understands the culture of Ames, Iowa.
Well, TJ's from Wisconsin, but he is the culture. He is the Iowa State culture. He's been there for a long time. I mean, sure, he left for a while, but he married an Iowa State women's basketball star, Allison Lacey. So TJ's always understood the Iowa State community, the Ames community, the Des Moines community, the surrounding communities, the Iowa State fandom. He's always understood that. And I've said this many times, and I've written it multiple times. This is his destination job. He's not coming here to use this as a stepping stone to go anywhere, although maybe Wisconsin at some point. I don't know if that should open up. For the simple fact that he's from there, but he's been here more than he's been there recently. So I really think this is his destination job. If that sounds odd, so be it. But TJ honestly, and I know TJ very, very well, he honestly loves Ames, Iowa, the community. And like I said, he married a former women's basketball star. They've got 3 kids. It's just a perfect fit for him, and he's translated that perfect fit to his team. I mean, guys, they practice at 8:00 every morning. Every morning they practice at 8:00. They eat breakfast together after practice. They do everything together. They eat supper together. The TJ and the coaches and the team, or when the coaches are in town at least. this is a very, very connected group, and that's kind of what he means by that.
Randy, last thing, and we appreciate your time as always for the Des Moines Register. Iowa State beating Texas last night, tied with Kansas. Kansas State at 5-1. Kansas State has this week has Tech, I believe, and Iowa State has Oklahoma State. I see a little bit of that. Wait till early next week, and of course in the Big 12, that's dangerous, even with teams right now struggling, including those two. A little bit of concern about not looking too far ahead and making sure they continue to take care of business in the Big 12.
Yeah, and that's another thing that TJ's been very, very adamant about. If we want to, if as a reporter we want to talk about something, movie going forward, like what's going on in the Big 12, he'll give he'll say the Big 12 is the best conference in the country, and then he'll say, but their focus is just one game, and that's that's cliche. I think it's really true with TJ, but yeah, this week coming up, it's crazy. Or next week is crazy. They play at home against K-State on Tuesday. And then they're at Missouri on Saturday in that Big 12, whatever that would be, the Big 12 SEC thing. They're at Missouri, and then after they get done with Missouri, they jump on a plane, and then they play Tuesday night at they play Monday night at Texas Tech. So it's nothing lets up in this conference, as you guys know. It's a very, very tough conference.
It's like the Oklahoma drill or something like that in football, and it is almost at times you wonder about the attrition. Hey, Randy, great stuff. Love the column today. What's the difference? What's different with this Iowa State men's basketball success? It's sustainable. Randy Peterson, Des Moines Register, with us on 365 Sports. Ideal MRI in the Central Texas marketplace. Dr. Rob Maxey and his partners, his staff, they have done an amazing job, and they have been good from day one. Good from day one because of a couple of reasons. Well, one, they have a great staff. But number one, they have an incredible MRI imaging machine. I've been in it. Many others have as well. If you have something that is aches and pains or something that hurts even more than that, and your doctor suggests an MRI, then that's who you should contact in the Central Texas marketplace, online as well, idealmri.com, and also save you hundreds of dollars, maybe even $1,000 or $2,000, because the average MRI is $1,100, and theirs every single time is $497 or less every time. IdealMRI.com will find out what hurts, and if they can't, then, well, maybe there's something else that they need to look for. IdealMRI.com in the Central Texas marketplace, just off I-35 in Waco.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears!
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, cause weight gain, and wreak havoc on your sexual desire and performance. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results, so if you're tired of being tired, I challenge you to man up and Google search Low T Waco or go online pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $150 a month, includes lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, follow-up visits compared to $395 a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T as board-certified physician consultations will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone available. Contact Petty Clinic Low T today, just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway. Petty Clinic Low T, helping men become the high-performance men they deserve to be. PettyClinicLowT.com or Google search Low T Waco.
Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics. The team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injuries, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is brought to you by Edward Jones and financial advisor Cam Heathcott. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
A lot of things that we hopefully have covered, and if we haven't, that's why there's the chat room and also the text line, and if you have a suggestion, we will obviously look at that. Sports Tonight, by the way, this show, thanks to Emery Winter, condensed at 10:30 to 11:30, thanks to the folks at the CW channel, and that's every weeknight at 10:30, the CW channel, and also the best segments or discussions or vice versa, both, whatever, are up, and Emery does a spectacular job of weaving through that. I mentioned earlier, we've mentioned the scores in the Big 12 last night. TCU, West Virginia tonight. Oklahoma at Oklahoma State also is a part of the schedule in the Big 12 tonight. We mentioned Baylor's win at Tech. Tech is in a bad situation. They're 0-6, not good. It doesn't look good. Baylor actually has had success there, and then again they haven't. But they have the last 4 or 5 trips there, winning 4 or 5 times. But they did something in that game that they did against Oklahoma State. They started well. They didn't dig themselves a hole. Now, I didn't like the way at times it seemed like with about 4 or 5 minutes left, you knew Tech was going to make a run, and they did, and they threw up a couple of threes and made them. But there's still a few of those sloppy turnovers, ball handling, passing that I just wish they were more aware of.
Well, if you look at their 3 losses in conference, Iowa State rolled them after halftime. Started before, but after halftime just rolled right through. So that was kind of a different one. Kansas State was back and forth the entire time and went into OT, and they lost by a basket. And they lost by 1 to TCU, and they lost by 1 to TCU because they couldn't finish. Right. That one sticks out that they could not finish. And look, when they've played other good teams like Gonzaga, they finished earlier in the year. That was another 1 point or close win. UCLA, they finished. They've finished better. They finished against West Virginia. They didn't have to against Oklahoma State. They finished Oklahoma State at the start of the second half. That game was kind of already in hand. Against Texas Tech, what was a little nerve-wracking was, they won by 7, but they were up by 12, 13, and if they could have maintained that was what the national championship team did was if they got you to a certain point, they were only letting you get so close. And to do that, you had to do a couple things. Again, Tech did a couple of things last night and chucked up and made a couple of threes, but they did have to, have LJ Cryer at the line making free throws late in the game to ensure that Tech did not have a possession at the end of the game where
they could tie it.
Or they get it to a possession, and then you have to make a very crucial inbound pass, and you leave yourself no room for error, like what happened against TCU.
But they won, Craig, 3 straight. They were 0-3. None of the games, Oklahoma State, they were up 13-0, and it was 19-17, but they won. They've won a couple of games on the road. West Virginia, which wasn't easy. And then Texas Tech, which was not supposed to be easy. Not that it was, but they've dug themselves out. The only thing is you turn around, you're 0-3, you wear yourself down to get to 3-3, and now you're on the road against Oklahoma, then Kansas on Monday.
Yeah, but what's
it's great.
What's the alternative? You're 3-3 and you're going to Iowa State. Like there's no little gimme team coming up. So you were going to be facing that regardless of who you had coming up. So yeah, that's just the reality of the league that you're in. And yeah, kudos to them. Keontae George is certainly a very talented player and a star in the making. And we'll be seeing him at the top of the NBA draft, not the very top, but close to the top of the NBA draft here in the next few months, I would imagine. But first, he's got to finish making his mark in what is likely his 1 year in Waco. And so far, he's off to a pretty good start, and I think is constantly showing the signs of why he was so coveted and why his future is so absolutely bright. But yeah, they've really rallied well, and I didn't think he was over at 0-3, but you knew that they couldn't afford to be 0-4 or 1-4 or anything along those lines. And so now they're back above water, and you've got to just ensure that you don't fall back below the surface and get drugged back down to where now you're or 3-6, and you start this process all over again. Yeah. You scratched and clawed your way back, and now take advantage of that and go beat Oklahoma. And then we'll see what happens. Kansas is a totally different wild card, and that's just one of those that no matter what sort of stretch that you're in or not in, that is always going to be extremely difficult. But yeah, night in, night out, it's a tough league, and it's pretty impressive that they've been able to go on the run that they have. But I think that's not totally shocking because we expected this to be a really good team, and the 0-3 start was quite surprising. So this is about what was expected, and perhaps they have a bit more in store as well.
If they can not only just get to 500, which I didn't know if they would for a while. In fact, I was doubting that. I'm kind of more of not in their case just because the conference is so good, the glass half empty rather than the glass half full. And yet again, here they are at 3-3. Michigan. Matt Weiss, you guys read about this? Athletic department, he's on leave. A report of computer, at least allegations, investigation of a report of computer access crimes that occurred in December at the football facility. And also his house had police cars around it from, I guess, earlier in the week. And searching the home believed to be tied to the University Police investigation on the, as I mentioned, report of computer access crimes. What could this be?
Hacking is what is commonly referred to as, and I know that because, as you said, computer access crimes, I put it in Google.
Oh, okay.
So that describes a criminal action where someone uses a computer to knowingly gain access to data in a system. So it is, that's what it is. It's a hacking. I'm not sure what system or data. Obviously, it doesn't say he's going after, but that is what it is computer access crimes. So.
Yeah, that's very vague and could leave a lot to interpretation, which I'm sure it already has in Michigan State and their rival circles, where people are just having fun at the feet of Michigan because of this black eye, whatever this may turn into. But yeah, it's a bizarre thing to see reported, not really in many of our wheelhouses, and we're not even sure, like we said, what that's actually about. But it's been a weird stretch for Michigan over the last 3 weeks or so. Not the most fun at times, despite the fact that one of your collectives or your collective was able to ensure some guys are going to be back for another run next year. Got good news on the likes of Blake Corum and guys like that. But besides that, it's been pretty rough between the semifinals loss to TCU that was totally unexpected, I think, by the probably all of their fans, and certainly by a lot of the national media as well. And we, I didn't think that TCU was going to win that game. I thought they were going to play way harder than many were giving them credit for. But I mean, that was shocking to most who watched that. And you have Harbaugh's dancing back and forth with NFL offers and whatever that was ultimately, going to turn into. It did, end up to their benefit. But now you have this, and I don't know, it's just a lot of weird stuff seemingly going on, or a lot of negative stuff that seems to be hanging around here as of late, and some positives mixed in as well. But yeah, it's a bizarre thing to see, and I don't know quite what to say because I have no idea what this is in reference to outside of just the fact that there's an investigation.
All right, Paul, there was one more story you mentioned we had not brought up.
A.D. Mitchell.
A.D. Mitchell from Georgia, very talented, dynamic playmaker. Graham Coffey's been kind of on this for the last 2 or 3 days, and this was almost imminent. And then there was a thought maybe it would not happen. A.D. Mitchell into the portal. This has been in the works since December. A big reason why Georgia got the 2 big insurance policies they did with Thomas and Lovett. The A.D. Mitchell story has been filled with so many twists and turns the last week, new era of college sports. And then I looked at some of the responses to his tweet, and there were thoughts about, was there any kind, I think he's visiting Texas. Paxton is a huge Texas fan, had that up in the chat room. I'd seen that before as well. And there were concerns about, well, when did the conversation begin with him or anybody that enters the transfer portal, and how soon and how much is going on with what Jeff Traylor mentioned, tampering?
Yeah, I mean, you can't kind of put some of these wild ones past any of that. I mean, Jordan Addison was one of the biggest one, where all of a sudden he's going to USC kind of out of the blue, or in the transfer portal out of the blue, and then everybody kind of said USC, but he took several visits to other places. But A.D. Mitchell caught the winning touchdown in the Ohio State game for Georgia, and
Duke can go.
Yeah, felt like he had been out most of this year with injuries, but came back to play in the postseason and scored I think everybody scored a touchdown in the national championship game. So if he didn't, I'm sorry, but it's hard to keep track. So it is weird that he is not coming back into what would be a pretty good receiving core with or without him. But with him, I mean, if you have A.D. Mitchell, Ra Thomas, and Dominic Lovett, I mean, that's a pretty good wide receiver core. And I'm not even mentioning some of and Ladd McConkey also. Ladd McConkey's coming back to Georgia as well. Throw in Brock Bowers. That's one heck of a amount of weapons for either Carson Beck or Brock Vandegrift, whoever wins that job. So maybe it is partially that, his touches were going to go down and he can go somewhere and pick it up. He is from Texas, so we'll see what happens if the University of is the place that he goes, or if it's somewhere else.
I think he's bound for Texas. I think that's where all the arrows are pointing. Let's just kind of get right to that. That's where all the arrows are pointing, and the way that it's talked about makes it sound like it has been in the works for a while. I mean, otherwise, why would it just all of a sudden he's entering the portal and there's all of this smoke? There's been smoke about Texas before he entered his name into the portal. So, like you said, he's a Texas guy, good player. I mean, we saw him, sparingly numbers-wise last year. But, yeah, I mean, all you have to do is look. He had a 22-yard touchdown against TCU, had a 22-yard touchdown, 3 catches, 43 yards against Ohio State. And those were the bulk of his numbers last year. Had a catch against Samford earlier in the year, and in the opener against Oregon had 4 for 65 and a score. So, had numbers in 3 of the 4 games that he had stats, had a touchdown against TCU, Ohio State, and Oregon, top 3, 4, and 11 teams in the country when he played them. So didn't see a lot of them for injuries or what have you, but when we did see him, he was, making a splash, especially there towards the end of the year. So good pickup for Texas. Sounds like, again, it has been in the works for a while, or this is almost a foregone conclusion. So I suppose if he commits elsewhere, then that would be like a big stunner. But, yeah, fully expect him to end up with the Longhorns. And you can talk about who Georgia has or whatever, McConkey and all that. How about Isaiah Nayor, Xavier Worthy, and A.D. Mitchell? Yeah. I mean, that's where their brains are. And then you add in, obviously, the big talented, tight end and Jatavian Sanders. And then, committee replacing Bijan and Quinn Ewers and the offensive line. And they're expecting a big run in Austin next year. There's no doubt about it. I think that, probably going to be the last year. They would love nothing more than to go out Big 12 champs and, put a period on the end of that sentence and it be, them with the bragging rights at the very end. And they're surely shaping up to be a team that's going to be right there at the top of the league in terms of prediction and contention, because why else wouldn't they be? I mean, look at the roster. They really have no excuse not to be, especially when schools like TCU and K-State are losing as much as they're losing. I mean, Texas should almost be the clear favorite, I think, in so many ways. So, yeah, this would be a very good pickup for them, and I expect it will be a pickup for them sooner rather than later.
He played for Ridge Point High School down in the Houston-Fort Bend area. Then he transferred to a school in Tennessee. So there is some connections to the state of Texas. All right, when we come back, we'll have plenty more to get to. We'll also have John Machota today at 5:30. Paul's top 5 today whenever decides to do it, whenever that time is, based on what's now 5:50 or 5:55, like the liner says and the billboard says. This is 365 Sports. Waco Custom Marketplace, your hometown grocery store in the Central Texas Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive. I'm not sure why I said that, but they are where you can get whatever cut of steak you want. You can call, order what you want, whether it's a bone-in ribeye or boneless ribeyes, bacon wrap fillets, and some of them can be as thick as you want them, maybe even 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches, 2 inches thick with bacon. And then, of course, the meat market, the butcher shop, is a self-service. You tell them what you want. They then put up whatever you want in a box, can pick it up, take it home for whatever you want the weekend as well. They have pork, poultry, and seafood. Norwegian salmon that is delicious. They have a lobster tail tank. Well, it's live lobsters, and they'll turn it into a lobster tail for you. And then a bakery that's also full service with treats and sweets and what you want, seasonings, marinades, sauces, barbecue, charcoal, what you want. They have a couple of tubs of big brisket if you want to cook one of those, smoke one of those. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Richard Carr is the new 2023 truck or SUV you want in stock today. The versatile GMC Terrain is waiting for you. Qualified buyers get 3.9% financing and a $750 loyalty rebate for eligible GMC owners. Qualified buyers get 2.9% financing on most new 2023 GMC Sierra 1500s in stock, or 3.9% on all 2023 Buick Envision, Encore, and Enclave SUVs in stock. Call now, get here now, or log on to get all the details and to drive home your new GMC or Buick today.
Richard Carr, they have the truck for you. Cars priced right, day and night. At Richard Carr in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. At Richard Carr in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. At Richard Carr in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. At Richard Carr in Waco, Texas.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8-year-old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses. When it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why we take the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott in Conroe at 936-756-7717. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit Marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Welcome back to 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. It's time for our weekly segment with John Machota of The Athletic, brought to you by Pioneer Steel and Pipe, where customer service is their main focus, and best in metal, steel, and pipe for large or small projects, with 2 locations in Waco and Bryan. Family owned and operated since 1943.
Paxton, UT fan, asking, I haven't watched A.D. Mitchell, but could he start right away?
Yeah.
Yeah, the answer is yes. He's very explosive. I think he's been in and out. But as Craig mentioned, what he did against some of the teams, the highest-ranked teams that Georgia played against, and there were a few, when I watched him catch the game-winning pass against Ohio State, that was dynamic. Now, again, there's the mixture of everything, and they have Worthy, and they have Mayor, who's back, hopefully completely healthy if you're him, and you know, for anybody. And then on top of that, what else they add, including Mitchell from Georgia. When that becomes official and it's like a done deal. Even one of the stories, I just happened to Google his name, and it was Texas football target. Has entered the portal. We know that is just a matter of time before he ends up at the University of Texas. Good luck to him.
How do we know he was a target unless they already knew he was going to be in the portal?
Dude, because it's been out there, and there's no reason. Like, we don't even have to. Like, why? Let's not pretend like there's actually rules. You know what I mean? Like, we keep acting like, well, how is that possible? Wink, wink. Because there's nobody enforcing anything, so all of it's possible. It's all out there. I mean, shoot, we might as well have like the folks on the forums reporting this, before the reporters at this stage, because it seems like this stuff gets out there, and it's not like it's some secret trying to be hidden by anybody. Everybody's just like, yep, that's exactly what's happening. What's anybody gonna do about it? Not a damn thing. So yeah, A.D. Mitchell's probably tampered with or whatever, and no one will do anything about it, and that's, what will either continue on or what will eventually change. And, I think that's a big question that remains to be answered that will help dictate, just how much following college football has in the next couple of decades is, how much do people embrace it? It seems like people have come a long way in just a couple of years when it comes to NIL and all of that, but at some point, what is the breaking point as far as player movement goes, and as far as the Jaden Rashada type stories where people are like, this is ridiculous. These are 17, 18-year-old, 19, 20, 21-year-old kids. I don't care anymore. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I just want to watch my college football team and know who's on it. Until we get to that stage where there's a mass amount of those types of people, then, it's just part of the deal, and we'll either, like I said, eventually come back to bite them, or it's going to take college football as a sport into a whole nother level than it's ever been in before.
And that a lot.
That might be like the NFL, and that's not what necessarily everybody wants. But here's the breaking news that's been out there for a while now. It is changing, and this is just it is what it is. So I know there's definitely Georgia fans who have voiced their displeasure, but they've also had the opportunity and will certainly in the future benefit from the portal, even though they haven't really had to rely on it much, compared to other teams. They've been A-okay in that regard, and the last couple of years are evidence of that. But at some point, and Kirby even said, at some point we will get into the portal. We wanted guys last time in the portal, and we'll get them. We just didn't really need them this time around, and clearly he was right, because they, won the national championship by 1 billion points. So yeah, this is interesting, but it is weird that basically, hey, I need a receiver. I'm just going to go make a phone call and go grab the guy off Georgia or however it's done, and that's the era we're in now.
And they aren't the only team.
No.
They'll end up at Texas, but USC's name was brought up among others. Yeah. Dane Brugler, go ahead.
Yeah, I think we're kind of in a – and this is this is just kind of worldwide now, but we're in what historically I think we'll look back on the, when it comes to ethics and legality of things is and all across the board is the era, because that's kind of when people get caught doing something or there's unethical things going on, there's the period of the people who get caught are going, and then
that era and the whataboutism era.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure.
Well, they're so tied in together.
Yeah.
What about this? What about that? Well, if you both committed a crime or did something wrong, then what about doesn't matter. You both did it. Yeah. I'm just saying unethical crime. And whataboutism happens with crime all the time. It depends on if you like the person who did the crime or not, right? So,
or if it helps you.
Yeah, if it helps you. So then, but then you say, well, what about these people? They did the same thing. Well,
I see that a lot, and I don't want. I want to get into what Dane Brugler had on a list of some draft picks that have some names that would be familiar to us. But you see that a lot where in politics, someone has themselves maybe sideways, and then whoever reports it, well, then why didn't you have this same type of passion when somebody else did it? Wrong is wrong.
Yeah.
Bottom line. Dane Brugler, draft 2.0. His top pick to the Colts that they would trade with the Bears would be Bryce Young.
Yeah, if I were the Bears, I am sitting here for the next 3 months, right?
Taking every call.
And I would – the amount of bull crap stories that are going to come out about the Bears and the pick and what they're looking for are going to be amazing.
All right.
I mean, it's going to be because they don't need a quarterback. So there's going to be so much nonsense.
Take everything you can. The thought was that Dane said they'll get the number 4 pick, so they'll flop 1 and 4, get the 35th pick of the draft, and then also get a first-round pick in 2024, which doesn't seem like that's enough to me. Texans at number 2, Will Levis.
I was surprised to see it, and Dane is one of the draft guys that I really respect the most and like the most and appreciate his work the most. I mean, there's a lot of really good ones out there. So I was surprised to see Levis over C.J. Stroud, but he's not the only one who has it. And – the Texans, if they want Bryce Young and make sure they get Bryce Young, then they're going to have to do that trade with the Colts or the Bears themselves. The problem for the Texans is the Colts also need a quarterback and are right there 2 picks behind them.
Number 3, Arizona, Will Anderson Jr., outside linebacker, pass rushing specialist from Alabama. The Bears would drop the 4 and they'd get Carter from Georgia.
Yeah.
The defensive lineman, everybody would love to have him. Carolina 5, C.J. Stroud. They need a quarterback. They've been searching for a quarterback. There's like 8 or 10 franchises that are just in quarterback hell. They're one of them. That would be at 5. At number 9, Texas Tech's outside rusher Tyree Wilson from West Rusk High School, and he's Texas, would be at number 9 to Seattle. That was the first Big 12 name that jumped up on the board. At 25, the Giants' Quentin Johnston from TCU and Temple High School. 26, the Cowboys, Siaka Ika, nose tackle, Baylor. And 31, Philadelphia, Bijan Robinson.
Yeah, I think that for the Cowboys, nose tackle is going to be their biggest area of need, whether it lines up with the most talented player that's on the board will be remain to be seen. So, but yeah, they're going to have to address that position. The Giants need, who's the scary wide receiver on the Giants right now? Nope. It's amazing they've been doing this without anybody that you can, really even. I mean, Isaiah Hodgins has been playing for, I don't know, this Isaiah Hodgins. Hodgins had a good game for them last week. They've gotten stuff out of Dante Pettis and Slayton. Darius Slayton's been their best wide receiver, and he's a good player. I mean, I wouldn't, knock for having on my team, but, he's not DeAndre Hopkins or anybody like that. So, that's what's been kind of crazy about what Brian Daboll and that group have done there in New York. So, going to get a Quentin Johnson would make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, the Big 12 has been, I guess we're just looking at it from that standpoint, been starved for first-round picks outside of, the occasional Oklahoma quarterback, basically. So that would be a heck of a successful, showing for them if they were able to get, what sounded like about a handful of guys there in the first round. I mean, it's been very hit or miss. Jalen Petrie was the highest rated guy last year, and he was like the 35th, 6th pick. So he was just outside of the first round. But Just surprised to hear Bijan that low, and then yet again it's a running back. So I guess it's not entirely surprising, but still it just feels like he's bound or destined to be a top 15 type of a pick. But I suppose that goes into the whole value of that spot now. No matter how good, silky smooth he runs, how talented he is, that's still just what the league views that spot as. But yeah, I mean there's a long way to go. So we'll see what that looks like in April, but that's interesting to hear that they've got that many prospects potentially in that top 32.
We're now joined by John Machota, theathletic.com, covers the Cowboys, and I was writing a tease for our show on the CW channel and mentioned we'll have John Machota discussing the Cowboys are a win away from an NFC championship game berth, and it made me start to wonder what earth is this?
It's an earth where the Cowboys also win a road playoff game for the first time in 30 years and finally beat Tom Brady. So, yes, it does seem like a strange – it's also an earth where the kicker misses 4 extra points in a row and they still win convincingly. So, yeah, it's a strange thing, but that's what – oh, and also maybe even the craziest of them all, it's an earth where 3 of the 4 teams left in the NFC playoffs are also in the NFC East. I mean, things that I just would never have predicted.
No, everything about that is all upside down. Okay, so for Brett Maher, I know Bones Fossil feels pretty good about getting him back into the rhythm, but they did bring in another kicker on their practice squad today, right?
Yeah, Tristan Vizcaino, who he was with them briefly several years ago, but it was like a January signing where they let him go, and I believe it was April. So, I mean, it's not like he was even around for training camp, but obviously they know of him. It kind of makes sense for this game if they were going to, Maher would have to be really bad in practice to where they're just like, we got to have somebody else, for insurance just in case that happens. But he played in San Francisco, so he's actually kicked in San Francisco, which Brett Maher has never kicked at Levi Stadium. So there's that. But the issue that I saw is that, so Vizcaino hasn't played a ton this year. He's kicked 3 extra points and he's made all 3. But last year, he kicked 15 extra points and he missed 5 of them. So I don't know how much of an upgrade we're looking at here. I think the only reason you go in that direction is if you really feel like your kicker, who's been solid all year, better than solid, been great all year, is if you really think has the yips and that isn't going to get him back on track anytime soon, then maybe that's the emergency glass that you have to break. But I anticipate Brett Maher being the kicker in San Francisco, but it also, with how he kicked in Tampa, could impact how they, we might see them going for some more 4th down opportunities. We might see them going for 2 after some touchdowns, depending on how the game is going and things like that. But not a problem that you want to have at this point in the season. If this isn't like week 5 or 6, at least you have some time to work it out to be in the divisional round of the playoffs. That's not a great thing. So many good things going for the Cowboys in that game, but that is certainly the biggest negative coming out of that Tampa Bay win.
John, what do you think the bigger matchup issue is for the Cowboys? Their defensive line on San Francisco's offensive line, or the Cowboys' offensive line against the San Francisco defensive line?
Probably the Cowboys' offensive line versus San Francisco's D-line. And I just say that because, I think Tyler Smith will do all right against Nick Bosa, but it's a lot to ask for there. And I mean, this is the Cowboys' offensive line that they've had for most of the season. It doesn't look like they're going to have Jason Peters. And so they should be okay, but that defense, that 49ers defense altogether, I mean, it's going to be daunting. It's going to be a tough matchup there. Whereas on the opposite side, yes, Trent Williams is outstanding, and Micah's going to have his hands full there. But they move Micah around enough that I think he'll make enough of an impact. And DeMarcus Lawrence and Osa Digizua and Dorrance Armstrong and Dante Fowler, I think that they'll be able to get home there enough. It's about how are they going to be able to keep Dak clean. And so the positive for the Cowboys, though, is that you look at the way Dak played against Tampa Bay, how mobile he was, how much, he was looking to run in certain situations that he just wasn't doing during the regular season. But now that you're in a situation where it's win or go home, I felt like he was comfortable and maybe a little bit more comfortable than usual using his feet, and I think he'll have to do that in this game.
Yeah, I thought he silenced a lot of critics, don't you?
Yeah, that was stunning to go from that Washington game where obviously the game plan was a lot more vanilla than what we saw against Tampa. But, one of the most impressive things, because you could argue that he went from having his worst game to his best game and just in a huge moment, not only for the Cowboys, but for his own career. But the part that I think I'll always remember for that game is just how it wasn't like he just came out on the first throw and everything was just clicking. Like they started out in those first two series and it looked like, oh, this is just a carryover from Washington. And honestly, the play that stood out to me is that one on their third series, they had 2nd and 5, and he throws to Gallup along the Cowboys sideline, and it wasn't a good throw, but Gallup pulled it in, and it was just like kind of one of those, like, it was their first down, they got the confidence going, and he went to another level after that. He took his game to a level that it's as good as we've ever seen him. And so that's obviously a great thing to have. That's a great confidence builder going into this game. But yeah, I don't think you can say enough good things about him. I thought he was the difference. As great as Micah Parsons was in that game, he was huge too. Don't get me wrong, but Dak Prescott's play as well. I mean, just took everything to another level.
Dak, to me, John, has always had the issue of within the Cowboys fan base, not outside of it, which no matter who the quarterback is, they're going to get criticized because that's what comes with the territory. But within the Cowboys fan base, the reason I believe he hasn't been fully embraced is that they have a warmer memory of Tony Romo than he deserves. And I'm not trying to knock Tony Romo, but it kind of feels to me that every time Dak makes a mistake, they forget the mistakes that Tony Romo made and feel like it would have been better if Tony Romo was the quarterback or all of that, and he hasn't overcome that. But by winning a playoff game on the road, and if he somehow won on the road and the Cowboys are in the NFC Championship, I would think he could finally silence the Romo faithful.
Yeah, I agree. But I will also say if we fast forward in several years down the road, same thing will happen with Dak Prescott, whoever the next quarterback is for the Cowboys. There's this sense in life that I think that we all look back and everything before was always better than it is now. It doesn't have to be just sports. And there will be people that whoever the next quarterback is, the Cowboys, they'll be talking about how, man, this guy's never going to be like Dak was or Romo. I mean, they could compare it to that too. Because me in my own life, I look at it as, for me, it's the Michael Jordan thing. Like growing up in Detroit, I always rooted against Michael Jordan. But then as I got older and Jordan was retired and all of a sudden, Kobe and LeBron are coming by and there's people that have the audacity to talk about how they're better than Jordan. And you're just sitting there going like, are you kidding me right now? What are you talking about? Like, and so it's got me in the point where I'm like, kind of, yeah. And then after, because there's going to be plenty of other players down the road and they're going to be talking about how they're better than LeBron or Kobe. And I'll be like, are you serious? Like, how are you saying this already? But it's just always whatever, that thing is. And that's just how it is with the Cowboys, because let's not act like Tony Romo, as good as he was at times, that he didn't have huge mistakes and huge moments. There's a reason that he only had 2 playoff wins, and it wasn't just because he had just these awful teams around him. The team around Tony Romo gets worse as every year goes by. It's just always like he just did it all himself. He just put it together with duct tape, and just somehow Romo put it on his back. Like, and so people just they're going to want to put it in whatever their narrative is, and there will be a time when people look back and they'll appreciate Dak probably more than they do right now.
All right, so the 49ers defense, you mentioned this earlier, they're really good, and they have playmakers across the board, but no defense is perfect, maybe the 85 Bears. Where is their weakness on defense?
I kind of think it's at the defensive backfield. I think that if Dak can get some time, I think that he can, make some throws against this defense. It can cause some problems there. I think that they're good up front and they're going to be sure tackling. I mean, I look at their defense and I think of Fred Warner. I think of Nick Bosa up front. I mean, those are their 2 bell cows of where everything, starts with them. And they're just a really good tackling team and they make plays up front and there's not a lot of mistakes. So I think the corners is where you would have to attack, and that will come with having to get him some time. You're going to have to find some ways to keep that front off of Dak, and if you can, I think that's the area that I can see them having success. Is if he can be in that groove that he was, Monday night, I think that they'll be okay. I think that he'll be able to make enough plays that it'll keep the Cowboys in it down to the very end, and put them in a position where I just really feel like this game has a lot of it will end up having a lot of similarities to the game last year in Dallas. I really feel like it's going to be a close game. It's going to come down to a last possession or two, and And I think that this team right now, this Cowboys team, the way they're playing coming off that Tampa Bay game, I think that they're in a good position that if it does come down to that, with a T.Y. Hilton and Michael Gallup, a better CeeDee Lamb than they had last year, Dalton Schultz playing the way he is, I think that they can make enough plays down the stretch.
John, do you think we'll see more of Israel Mukuamu at cornerback?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe you do something similar with him like you did against like Chris Godwin. You do that with him against like a Brandon Ayuk, because it just seems like it makes the most sense that you're going to have Trayvon Diggs on Debo. You're going to have your Donovan Wilson / Leighton Vander Esch kind of focus on McCaffrey. And then I would say Ron Kearse will probably spend the most time with Kittle. And so, yeah, I think that fits in there with Mukuamu getting some more time. I'm kind of wondering if our guy Xavier Rhodes, Florida State's finest, we'll get some more. I'm going to be honest with you. This year, I don't think I've been any more surprised at the inactives before a game than I was for this game. Just not Neville Gallimore not being in there, Nashawn Wright not being in there, like not huge surprises, but I just kind of when they bred off those names, I was like, oh wow, okay, like you could just. They really are going with this more safety-heavy package, and they feel very good about all four of their safeties, and so that would make sense. I mean, they need their best tackling guys on the perimeter out there, and I mentioned with Trayvon Diggs going against Debo, that could be an issue there. Trayvon did not tackle well against Tampa Bay, and I think that Kyle Shanahan is going to find every way possible to force him to make tackles in open space, and if you don't make those tackles against a guy like Debo Samuel, you're in trouble.
He's gone. Yeah, you're right. Big, thick, strong, and he's also got great speed. Yeah, this is such an interesting setup, John, because as you mentioned of how they finished the year against Washington, they didn't mail that in. There might have been distractions that week, but they just looked pathetic. And they looked to me, and I think a lot of it is Tampa Bay, and I watched a lot of Buccaneer games because they were highlighted a lot, probably not as much as Dallas, but a lot. They just looked to be so damn fast and energetic and whatever else. How could that flip a switch in such 1 week, in just 1 week?
Part of me thinks that some of the game plan probably factored in, that there were things that they were going to do against the Bucs that they just weren't going to show against Washington. They didn't want to put that stuff on film. One obvious one being them going with what they call their MAC package, where Connor McGovern comes out and is a fullback, and instead of being their starting left guard, Tyler Smith's at left guard and Jason Peters is at left tackle. They had talked about doing that several weeks before that, to get the running game going, and they weren't going to show that against Washington or Tennessee. So there was little things like that I felt like when things started clicking for them, you just got the sense that they felt like we can score as much as we need to against this Tampa Bay defense. And I don't think any of us thought going into the game that was the case, just because of how bad things looked against Washington and how much they struggled to just do even simple things. To be able to get it clicking the way that they did, you felt like they knew that they had more in their bag than they were against Washington, that there were things that they were saving. The reason I thought that was a possibility but was cautious is because I felt the same way going in that 49ers game last year, that, they didn't play well against Arizona, and I was like, maybe they are saving some stuff. And then they played the Niners, and there just wasn't anything that really made me feel that way during the game. But against Tampa Bay, I don't know, like, look at the Dak fake handoff to Zeke on the 4th and 1 touchdown. Like, they don't run that stuff against Washington if they get down there. That was going to be something they were going to save for a big moment, and it worked. It was great. I mean, the harshest of Kellen Moore critics has to come out of that game even saying, like, damn, Kellen called a hell of a game.
John, thank you very much. Appreciate your time. A win away, which is interesting because they beat the 49ers in 1992 to get to a Super Bowl, winning three out of 4. And they broke a drought then, and we'll see what happens. This is just the second round, but would be interesting because the 49ers seem to be the favorite right now in the NFC. John Machota, theathletic.com, with us on the Cowboys and also the NFL. The AFC quarterbacks remaining are Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, and Trevor Lawrence, one of the young, perhaps, stars on the rise. In the NFC, you have Dak Prescott. I'm going blank on San Francisco.
Jalen Hurts, Brock Purdy,
which has been an incredible story in itself. And, I mean, you look at...
Okay, so in the NFC, you have a first-rounder in Daniel Jones.
Mr. Irrelevant.
Mr. Irrelevant. a fourth rounder and a
Dak.
second rounder in Jalen Hurts. And then in the AFC, you've got the first overall pick in Joe Burrow and in Trevor Lawrence. Then you've got Mahomes was the 8th pick, and I want to say Josh Allen was around that same spot too.
From Wyoming, too. Yeah,
From Wyoming.
Yeah.
But all of them top 10 picks, and 2 of them the top overall pick. So it's a little bit different. Like, no matter where you slice it, when you come to the and even the first-round pick for the NFC East was Daniel Jones, so he's not like a really high one. He wasn't, really. I guess he was maybe in the top 10 too. So, but even if the Giants are in the Super Bowl, that's the best quarterback draft pick status matchup. Maybe not the best overall quarterback. I mean, I believe not, but that's where it's weird. Like, you look at it. Who like Jalen Hurts and Dak are clearly the most accomplished 2 of them. And if you wanted to pick who your quarterback was right now, roster regardless, a lot of people would maybe even pick Dak over Jalen Hurts because Jalen's only done it for a year, right? So
when you said that Dak and Jalen Hurts are the most accomplished, for who?
In the NFC.
Oh, okay.
In the NFC, like Brock
that's not saying a lot. As you mentioned, Hurts has done it for a year, and Dak's been fairly consistent.
No, but like Daniel Jones this year has had a really good year, but every time Daniel Jones has had a great year, it's immediately followed by every analyst going, I can't believe it.
I don't know if he's ever had a great year.
No, but I mean, like he's had bad years. So I sounded like Regis said, like Daniel Jones, fantastic. Can't believe it. Gelman, did you see Daniel Jones? But it's still wild that he's had this great of a year. And that's, again, a credit to Brian Daboll and Mike Kafka and that staff.
By the way, to the 972 on the text line, 254-339-1122. Asked us earlier, I guess this was on Tuesday during yesterday's show. First time he picked this up. Listening now from Waco and live in DFW. College sports talk, not so good up here. So it's cool to hear your program cover the state and conference. Also great to hear the ads for local businesses back home. And he even mentioned that we should get on the road and do some things on location because of the technology, the bandwidth, what we need. That makes it a little bit difficult, but we appreciate the 972 for watching us and picking us up. Spread the word. Thank you very much. Paul's Top 5 next on 365 Sports.
Kick off the new year at the Start Something New sales event. Get up to $2,500 in total values and 1.9% for 72 months on the new 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokee Limited with second and third row seating options. The Start Something New sales event is happening now at Allen Samuels in Waco.
Howdy, Chet Garner here, professional guide, searching for bears in the wild. But not just any bears, oh no, a particular kind. With hundreds of thousands roaming freely in the wild, yet still hard to spot unless you know the signs. There they are, Baylor bears. If you're a bear enthusiast or even a bear yourself, join me and let's find some bears in the wild.
Join the expedition at baylor.edu/alumni.
Hi, this is Paul Catalina. I recently got engaged to the love of my life, but the most important thing that I had to do before I popped the question was get that perfect ring. And I know nothing about rings. So I went to the wedding ring store, Boozer's Jewelers on Valley Mills Drive. I knew I needed a custom design, and that's exactly what they do. 9 out of 10 of their engagement rings are designed in-house. The entire process took less than a month, and they were great every step of the way. Great options on financing, excellent selection, and talented designers. My fiance and I get nonstop compliments on the ring. I only deserve credit for doing the smartest thing I could, walking into Boozer's and letting them work their magic. Your one-of-a-kind fiance deserves a one-of-a-kind ring, and that's what you get at Boozer's. Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store on Valley Mills Drive.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible and rewarding challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like our free First mobile app, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. That's the First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Tell them Paul sent you by.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive, North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year. Whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5 at 5:45. Or is it 5:55? Either way, it's the Top 5.
Top 5 head coaches looking to reboot. Maybe their reboot. One of them is a bit of an outlier here, but given his situation, it's the number one guy. We'll get to him. He needs a reboot, but his is a little different. He already had maybe like a pre-reboot. But the rest of these guys, I think, are trying to reboot themselves and try to reestablish after it didn't go well at other places. Number 5, even though he left of his own volition, Scott Satterfield at Cincinnati absolutely needs a reboot. Even though it ended like they closed the season well at Louisville, there was no one in that city that wanted him to stay. Like when he up and left to go to Cincinnati, most times you hear fan base like, how could you do this to us? And most of the Louisville fan base was like, why, thank you. Please enjoy your trips to Cincinnati. I've heard great things about their chili and airport. So, like, that was just on the way there. And he needs to, I think, maybe reestablish some credibility because as soon as he was at Louisville, he was looking at other jobs, including Auburn. So he needs to be at Cincinnati and invest himself in Cincinnati.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very interesting scenario there with, just basically the way the schedule worked out and that bowl game and then, him moving on over. But, I mean, Louisville fans were tired of what they had seen, it seemed like, and they were as welcoming to a change as possible. So, yeah, it worked out well for both parties, and Cincy in a bit of a lurch because Luke Fickell's now suddenly gone, is able to get a guy who's a pretty good football coach. So, yeah, it's a interesting kind of trade how that occurred, but I'm excited to see what he does for Cincinnati, who, quite frankly is, coming to the Big 12 and not with really a whole lot of momentum based on just how everything kind of unfolded there at the end. And obviously Fickell being the biggest part of that. So he's got a tough task on hand introducing them to this new league. I don't think they're necessarily destined for a rocky start, but they very well could be in for one. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to think of them just yet. With a full off season to go, but it was an interesting sequence of events.
Yeah, absolutely. Number 4, Kevin Wilson at Tulsa. He was the head coach at Indiana, and then he was the offensive coordinator at Ohio State. He had like a nice start at Indiana, and then it tailed off. And so he wound up leaving there, and then he bounced around a little bit, but wound up at Ohio State, was the offensive coordinator there. Now on his way to Tulsa. He's someone who, again, maybe he winds up at Tulsa for a long time, but Tulsa is either a stepping stone job for other people, or it's one, like unfortunately Philip Montgomery had, where he got them to some pretty good heights, but ultimately, it was just time for him to move on there. But Kevin Wilson's the next guy to try to reboot his career at Tulsa.
Yeah, Philip Montgomery, though, when he seemed like he had some early success, and then after that it was a struggle, almost annually a struggle, very similar to Seth Luttrell. Even though they were having some success in getting to bowl games, it always seemed like it was a struggle to get there. I don't know much about Kevin. I know he was, like you said, at Indiana and where he's been, Oklahoma, et cetera, but I don't know much about what he's expected to do at Tulsa. But They didn't hire him just to they're trying to be more relevant and be more consistent. We'll see if he gets it done.
Picture on the right, he looks like Frank Costanza from Seinfeld.
A little bit,
The Festivus for the rest of us.
Yeah, I mean, he's a good assistant coach. As far as a head coach goes, I mean, I don't really know what to expect, and it's not like Tulsa really, sets off a lot of sirens in terms of, let's talk Tulsa football. I mean, they've kind of just been there. All due respect to Philip Montgomery, they've had some good moments, had some good players roll through there, but they're just kind of middle of the road, and like they'll make a bowl game and finish 6-7, or they're just kind of there to me. And at least at first when he got there was like some spike and some energy, and I think what ended up happening was they just sort of just flatlined. There wasn't any spikes anymore. It was just kind of like a slight bump from year to year or a slight dip. It wasn't though. Boom, we've suddenly won 10 games, and now we're on to, winning the American. But, I mean, he did a good job there. I don't know what their expectations are. I think it's just basically they found themselves just doing the same thing year after year, and they just needed to, change the sheets and shake things up a little bit. So Kevin Wilson should do that. I mean, he's 61 years old, so it's not like he's in this, you would think, for the long haul, the super long haul, but I'm sure he'll get, a nice bit of rope because Philip Montgomery surely did. And so I'm sure that, he'll have time to kind of sink his teeth and claws into this program. And I think that, Philip Montgomery certainly left it better than he found it. So this should be a nice little spot for a very seasoned guy like Kevin Wilson with the, exciting offense to be able to come in and do his thing.
Yeah. Number 3, Barry Odom at UNLV was at Mizzou and had some success there. And then it just tailed off. I think Mizzou fans, and maybe rightfully so, thought he was kind of riding the wave off of Gary Pinkel, who'd been there for a long time and won, and he took over after Gary Pinkel retired. And but UNLV is an interesting spot. They feel like a team, that is trying to watch from the outside, and they would make sense to me for Pac-12 expansion for sure. And so you want to make good hires if you're UNLV over the next couple of years because you're in an emerging, gigantic media market that has a lot of great things going on for it economically. And if your school can be good at football and men's basketball, even if it can't, I mean, you could, always be one of the schools that just fits in because of the market size, but it would certainly behoove them in these times to do well. And Barry Odom trying to be the guy who maybe gets them there.
Yeah, I'm tired of hearing about UNLV though in just the city. That's the only thing we hear about it. The reason it's even talked about is because it's in Las Vegas and there's all this potential. But I don't see them really. And maybe I'm just not reading the Las Vegas newspaper often enough to know kind of what they have in store and facilities wise and all of that. But yeah, it's a program that has a lot of potential. But I don't know how well aware most of us are on what exactly direction they're taking as far as that goes. But, guy with obviously a really, nice background, experience in, the most major conference of them all here recently. And so to find himself at UNLV obviously wasn't the plan, but he's got a lot of skins on the wall, and that is a thriving metropolis, like you said, that there's some opportunity there, but I just don't know how much anticipation or expectation there is there. I don't know what the mindset is. I don't know, if they've even kicked the tires at all in the Pac-12. I don't know if they're anywhere close to even being a team that the Pac-12 would want to bring in. I mean, you got to give me more than, it's in Las Vegas. Great. And, what else is there? So, yeah, a lot of good recruits out there in that area and on the West Coast. And so I think he should do well there. And then that is one job that if you do it right and you have the right support, that's the most important thing. Is like I've said a couple times now, I don't know what level of support there is, but if he's got the proper support, he's a good football coach, and that's a diamond in the rough type of program for sure.
Yeah. Number 2, Tom Herman at FAU. It did not go as everyone thought it would go at Texas. I mean, there was this thought when he got hired that there was a bidding war between Texas and LSU. LSU stuck with Ed Orgeron, and it worked out great for them in the short term as they won a national title. It didn't even come close to happening at Texas under Tom Herman, and he's a very brilliant coach when it comes to coaching, but I do think that the reason that Tom Herman isn't at Texas is not just the pressures of Texas in the outside world. It's a lot on Tom Herman in that he let his personality get in the way of that program growing. So I hope for his sake he's learned a little bit and adjusted. And FAU's been kind of a reboot school for several coaches. So we'll see how it goes there. I mean, there's lots of talent that you can kind of just fall into there, especially maybe guys who need to get down to the group of five that are from Florida and want to come home. You can probably have a pretty good team and contend for the conference title if you do it right at FAU.
He's a good coach in a strong area. He picked that job when there were other ones out there, so he obviously saw some potential there. And as you mentioned, there's been a lot of other names that have rolled through Boca Raton. So, he should be able to feast on Florida and Southeast athletes. He's a good coach, but his personality did get in the way. He was a little bit too abrasive and just a little bit too immature for it, and that cost him ultimately. And we'll see if he can find his way back to the mountaintop. But he had a little bit of an exodus, got to change his look and probably realize some things. And clearly they, feel like he's ready to get back in the game. So here he is. And I think that's a dude that, has a little bit of success quickly and maybe shows off that he is a little bit more grown up. Then he could find himself back in the Big 12 type ranks sooner rather than later.
I think it'll be healthy to see how he does away from where he is protected at the University of Texas as far as because of who he was, the GA and all of that stuff, and get away from me. I think sometimes he's just an asshole.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That's just kind of what he was. And I don't remember we had him on when he was at Houston and even was kind of brash even then when some of the things were out there. He is a football coach, and he's pretty good at it. So maybe getting away, far away, in a place where he can kind of do his own thing and not just get caught up in maybe even in himself.
Here's what I hope he learned in his 2 years away from Texas, that the running back is a guy that the quarterback can turn around and hand the ball off to sometimes. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that guy is a better runner, and most of the time it should be this case, is better at running the football than your quarterback.
Yeah.
Sometimes not, but most of the time, historically throughout football, the running back is a better runner than the quarterback because it's in the name. Just going to throw that out there.
But
for
you think
the
that's going to
Mensa guy.
change?
No, I don't. I hope he did learn it, but I don't think he's, But sometimes, a name means something. Mensa guys should know that. Number 1, Hugh Freeze at Auburn. Now, look, he's already had a mini reboot at Liberty, but that is also a school that administratively and athletic director-wise Ian McCall went there to reboot his career, after he left here. The school as a whole, really, for the football coach, when it comes down to the ex-president, there really has no right to ask questions about things that you've done in your past off the field. So that was a good place for Hugh Freeze to be and show what a good football coach he still was. But I do think the SEC world needs to see him win at that level again and win at that level as ethically as he can. I don't.
The SEC needs to see that?
I mean.
What league? Are we talking about different leagues?
No, I mean, publicly ethically, I guess. I mean, faux ethically. I'm not trying to, pretend like all, everybody else is doing it pure as the driven snow. But Hugh Freeze in particular has a reputation of being two-faced. So he's got to prove that over the length of time at Auburn, which is a difficult place. We talked about it earlier in the show, to succeed, because the minute you make a mistake or things don't go as people think it should be, regardless of the reality of the situation, you've got too many cooks in the kitchen that want to make moves within that program. So this is tough, but he is trying to get a reboot, and we'll see how it works for him in Auburn.
I think that he fits right in, basically as is. I don't think he's had to show really much contrition. I don't think there's anybody wanting an apology. I think that Auburn saw, hey, football coach wins games, let's hire him. And that's what they did, and they got the guy that they wanted over the guy that apparently they really didn't like all that much for starters, and Chris Peterson. And Brian Harsin. That's a big move that they made. It obviously came with some backlash, but I don't for one second think that he's like some changed man or that he's learned really any lessons. I don't think that Hugh Freeze has. I don't know that to be sure, but just nothing regarding his behavior while at Liberty made me go like, you know what? I think that guy's a changed person. I think he's who he was when he left the first time around, and they're just hoping that he is that in the way that he won football games, because that's really all that matters. And just, don't screw up too badly. Win football games, and you'll have a deal for life. I think that's basically the message that was sent, and that's basically the message that will be delivered. And he is a good football coach. To what extent, we'll find out. But what an opportunity for Freeze and Auburn. They see the success around them. They see Georgia where they are now, and they see Bama still doing their thing, and they want to get a bite back out of that as well, like they did a few years ago. So I won't say that like they sold their soul, but I don't think that they went and did a tremendous amount of due diligence and really like played the morals card all that much. I think they saw a guy who wins football games, and when things go wrong, he can call on his relationship to Christ, and they just hope that he wins football games and doesn't screw up too badly.
Look, personally, as a cynic, I believe probably the only thing that changed from Liberty to Auburn after Ole Miss was that now Hugh Freeze has a burner phone.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
I think that he wins football games, and it's like if we go all the way back to the start of the show. And I'm not saying this on like accusing Kendall Briles of anything, but like let's face it, they want to win football games. It's college sports. No one's ever really banished fully, except for one guy, and that's the father of the guy we started off talking about at the start of the show. But others have gotten chance after chance after chance in the wild world that is college athletics, and that's never going to change. So long as you say you're sorry well enough, then you'll get one. So long as you're a winner.
All right. Thank you, Paul. Craig, thank you very much. Retired stockbroker, thanks for your super chat. We mentioned earlier the others that we did receive. We appreciate them always. By the way, Paxton thought you were talking about coaches who needed a reboot at their current school.
No.
Jimbo, Gundy, Campbell, Venables, and, well, he mentioned Freeze. I think he had Freeze as number one. All right. Thanks to so many people. Carter, is that right, Paul? Carter's here. Faith is back. Have no idea where she's been, but we do love to have her in the studio. Emery, Jacob, Jack, and Garrett. We had the full throttle, and Levi's, of course, a part of it as well. For Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak, and also Garrett Ross, as always, thank you very much. Back at it tomorrow. We'll have Seth Greenberg of ESPN, Scott Drew, Max Olson, Mickey Spagnola, many others off the radar and top five. I'm David Smoak. Have a great night.
Ideal MRI is a small family business right here in Central Texas. We're open to support you while lowering the cost of healthcare bills. When you need